Chapter 471. As the box's door was closed from the outside, Sunwon looked at Tan Xiao with a dumbfounded expression. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes and heard it with her own ears, she would never have believed that the dignified manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall would be so respectful to Tang Xiao and call him boss. You are... Sunwen's lips squirmed as she spoke with an incredulous expression. Can you shut up? Li Laoshan angrily retorted. Brother Tang is the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. Sunwen gulped down a mouthful of saliva. She had some knowledge about the Everlasting Feast Hall, the most upscale restaurant in Shanghai. Not only was the Everlasting Feast Hall only a branch in Shanghai, but it also had branches in the imperial capital. She heard that the Everlasting Feast Hall also had branches in Jingmen Island and Hong Kong. Tan Xiao is the boss? He's probably very rich. All of a sudden, she realized how stupid she was just now, and how shameful she was to say those words. She had just looked down on Tan Xiao, yet Tan Xiao turned out to be the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. It was like an invisible slap that fiercely slapped her face. It must be known. Tan Xiao looked to be in his early 20s, yet he had already become the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. What was his family's background? It was very likely that his family's status was even more terrifying, right? She finally understood why Li Laoshan could become friends with Tan Xiao, and why he was angry with her just now. She had really shamed him. Sunwen's expression was a bit pale. She cautiously glanced at Li Laoshan and said with an apologetic expression, "I'm sorry, Mr. Tang. I was wrong." Tan Xiao waved his hand and smilingly said, "It's nothing. Didn't I tell you that we're a family? Your old brother Li's woman, so we'll be friends in the future." The anger on Li Laoshan's face faded a lot. He looked at Tan Xiao with a wry smile and said, "Brother Tang, unusual people do unusual things. It's really rare to see a young man as old as you who still has such a broad mind. What's more incredible is that every time I'm with you, I don't even feel the age difference between us. It's as if I'm communicating with someone of the same age." Tan Xiao laughed involuntarily and said, "Old brother Li, do you mean I look old?" Cough cough. Li Laoshan was choked by Tan Xiao's words. They finished their lunch quickly because they didn't drink. After the meal, Li Laoshan told Tan Xiao that they would leave Shanghai the next day and go to the imperial capital to make some preparations in advance. Tan Xiao went to Qi Nan's office and saw the 5 children sitting obediently on the sofa. Tan Xiao looked at Qi Nan and said with a smile, "You've worked hard." "Boss, it's my honor to serve you," said Qi Nan with a smile. Tan Xiao smiled and said, "Since it's your honor, I'll give you another task. Help me send a message back to the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. Ask them to help me investigate the mafia in YDL, focusing on the Tsuba clan and the M Country's Bronze Group. The more detailed the information, the better." Qi Nan's expression moved and she quickly said, "Boss, I have some knowledge about these 2 forces, but not much." "Tell me about it." Tan Xiao looked surprised. "The Mafia in YDL is the country's largest gang with more than 100,000 members," said Qi Nan. "The Tsuba clan is one of the top 3 Mafia clans in YDL and has a great heritage. I've killed some people before, and they were all members of the Tsuba clan. Additionally, the M Country's Bronze Group also has many business channels, most of which are in the pharmaceutical and liquor business. As far as I know, the Bronze Group owns dozens of large wineries. These 2 forces have a large number of thugs and have their own security companies. They are even inextricably linked to some international mercenary organizations. Few people abroad are willing to go against them." A chilling light flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he lightly said, "These 2 forces are now going against the magnificent Tang Corporation. I don't mind dealing with them if they dare to touch my bottom line." Qi Nan's expression slightly changed as she said in a deep voice, "Boss, had it been a few months ago, perhaps our Everlasting Feast Hall would be a bit afraid of them. But now..." Tan Xiao nodded. He understood the meaning behind Qi Nan's words. Recently, hundreds of core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall had been imparted with cultivation techniques, so their strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. In the past, if they could fight against 100 people alone, they would be undefeatable. But now, Every single one of them possessed terrifying strength. If they were to go all out, even these two factions would suffer great losses. Let's wait and see. Investigate them thoroughly first. I'll immediately send the news back to the HQ. Qi Nen nodded. A few minutes later, Tan Xiao left the Everlasting Feast Hall with Tang Xiaojin's group of 5. After returning home by car, he told the 5 of them to stay at home and then left the Blue Star Villa complex. Shanghai First Public Hospital. Tan Xiao rushed to the inpatient department, where Yuan Chuling and the others were staying. What puzzled him was that Yuan Chuling wasn't on the sickbed. Only 2 of Yuan Chuling's classmates were lying on the beds next to them. Who are you looking for? A young man curiously looked at Tan Xiao and asked. I'm Yuan Chuling's friend. Where did he go? Asked Tan Xiao. He said that staying in the ward was too boring, so he went outside to chat with the nurses, said the young man. Who? Are you the Tan Xiao that Yuan Chuling mentioned? Eldest bro Tang? That's right. It's me. Tan Xiao laughed. The young man quickly propped up his arms and sat up. Then he gratefully said, Eldest bro Tang, thank you for everything you've done for us. I've heard about what happened afterward. If it weren't for you, we would have been in a lot of trouble with the school. We wouldn't have been able to vent the resentment inside our hearts. You're Yuan Chuling's classmates, so we're not outsiders, said Tan Xiao with a smile. All right, have a good rest. I'm going to look for him. Got it. The 2 nodded. After leaving the ward, Tan Xiao spread his spiritual sense around. Immediately after, he saw Yuan Chuling in a doctor's office. He was holding a nurse's hand and reading her palm. This fella, Tan Xiao shook his head. After rushing to the ward, he directly pushed the door open and strode inside. The nurse, whose hand was being held by Yuan Chuling, was startled by Tan Xiao. She screamed in fright and suddenly retracted her hand as though she got an electric shock. An angry look appeared on Yuan Chuling's face as he turned to look at the door. When he saw Tan Xiao, he immediately looked angry and called out, Eldest bro Tang, why did you come here? Also, didn't you come at the wrong time? Hey, fatty Yuan, don't mess with that nurse, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Let's go. The earlier you get better, the earlier you can leave the hospital. Yuan Chuling rolled his eyes. He then turned to the delicate and pretty nurse, who was obviously a bit flustered, and said, Let's end our talk here today, beautiful sis. Palm reading can indeed see everyone's life. I'll show it to you some other day. After saying that, he controlled the wheelchair with both hands and moved toward the door. Tan Xiao could only force a wry smile inwardly. He found that as he grew older, every boy was like a pervert, with their minds full of women and women. He quickly walked a few steps forward. He reached out to push Yuan Chuling's wheelchair and said, You can't stay still even though you're controlling the wheelchair with one hand. Yuan Chuling chuckled and said, We're boys in puberty. Puberty is equivalent to puberty. Don't tell me you, Tan Xiao? A voice interrupted Yuan Chuling's words from the door of the ward next to them. Tan Xiao turned his head. When he saw the other party, a surprised look immediately appeared on his face as he said, Jia Ruidao. How come it's you? Jia Ruidao strode out of the door as he hurriedly stretched out his hand and said, Tan Xiao, I didn't expect it to be you. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me just now. Tan Xiao said with a smile, My friend is a bit injured, so I came to see him. Jia Ruidao glanced at Yuan Chuling as he nodded and said, Tan Xiao, it's been a few months since we last met in Jingmen Island, hasn't it? I really didn't expect that we would meet in Shanghai. Tan Xiao said with a smile, I'm studying at the University of Shanghai. Can you? What are you doing in Shanghai? Jia Ruidao said with a smile, I've been doing some business recently and am preparing to move my company to Shanghai. Since I'm not feeling well, I came here to have a checkup. What business? Tan Xiao asked. I've retired from the gambling industry, and I don't have other things to do, so I opened a video game mall. That's right, I also have a big shop in the commercial street near your university. I've been preparing to renovate it recently. That's right. Tan Xiao said with a smile. Jia Ruidao said, Tan Xiao, since I can meet you in Shanghai, it means that our fate is not shallow. Do you have time tonight? I'll treat you to dinner. Tan Xiao said with a smile, I have an appointment with someone tonight. Let's do it another day. Jia Ruidao said with a smile. All right, I'll be staying in Shanghai for the next few months. Let's contact each other by phone later if we have time. Tan Xiao nodded with a smile as he pushed Yuan Chuling toward the ward. Who's that eldest brother? Yuan Chuling curiously asked. A friend, Tan Xiao said. Yuan Chuling said, Boss, I just heard him say that he's quitting the gambling industry. What's going on? Is he a professional gambler? You guessed it right. He's indeed a professional gambler, and his level is very high. Tan Xiao said with a smile. However, gambling is not a legitimate profession. I once helped him with a small favor, and he also suffered some losses in that incident, so he retired from the gambling industry. Yuan Chuling raised his thumbs up and praised, Eldest brother, I found that you're really amazing. You just casually met someone, and they all accepted your help. I saw that Jia Ruidao seems to respect you very much. Don't praise me, I'll get complacent. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. Chapter 472. As the saying goes, friendship is like a clear spring that nourishes the heart on the road of growth. Although the friendship between Tan Xiao and Yuan Chuling wasn't particularly deep, but with the mentality of, if someone treats me well, I'll be very kind to them, Yuan Chuling's performance also gave Tan Xiao a place in his heart. Therefore, Tan Xiao chatted with him for more than 2 hours before they left Shanghai's first public hospital. After returning to Blue Star Villa Complex, Tan Xiao didn't even have a sip of tea before he received a call from someone he had almost forgotten. Moreover, it was an international call. Who is it? Standing by the bedroom window, Tan Xiao calmly asked. A silvery voice came from the phone. Boss, it's Kawako Yamamoto. Tan Xiao stared blankly for a moment and suddenly recalled the young lady of Japan's Yamamoto family, the future young master of the North Star One-Blade School, and the ninja expert whom he had cast the soul ruling curse on. What's the matter? It's an important matter, boss, said Kawako respectfully. I just received an order from my family's patriarch, my father. He wants me to lead a team to China to steal the product information of a company called the Magnificent Tang Corporation in Star City. I know you're in Star City, so I'm calling you. Tan Xiao's complexion changed and a cold light flashed in his eyes as he slowly said, I'm the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss. I personally developed the immortal wine, skin care lotion, and scar removal cream. Do you think I'll let your Yamamoto family get them? I'm really sorry, boss, said Kawako hurriedly. I didn't know that you're the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, nor did I know that you developed those 3 products. But my father's order. Tan Xiao's mind raced and he pondered for a while before he slowly said, You can bring your men here and wait for my news after you've settled down in Star City. I'm in Shanghai now and I'll return to Star City in 2 days. We'll have a long-term plan at that time. Also, how is your development over there after returning to China? Kawako complied and said, Boss, the soul-ruling spell you taught me is really miraculous. I've already secretly controlled 1/3 of the high-ranking members of the family. They may keep a distance from me on the surface, but they're completely obedient to me in secret. In addition, several elders of the North Star One-Blade School were also under my control with the mind-controlling curse. A group of elite ninjas also obeyed my orders. 3 years at most, and I will be able to completely control the Yamamoto clan and the North Star One-Blade School. Tan Xiao said with satisfaction, I see. Later, I will send you a list of cultivation resources. There are some medicinal herbs and ores on it. You can use your power in the island to find them. If you bring a lot of them over, I will reward you with some pills that can help you cultivate faster. Elixir? What's that? Asked Kawako. You don't need to know. You just need to find the medicinal herbs and ores on the list I gave you, said Tan Xiao lightly. If I'm satisfied, I'll give you some pills that can speed up your cultivation. It's even possible to speed it up several times. Several times? Kawako got excited and hurriedly said, I'll try my best to postpone my trip to China, boss. I'll try my best to find the medicinal herbs and ores you need. Alright. Tan Xiao then hung up the phone. In order to return to the immortal world and restore his peak state, Tan Xiao needed a lot of cultivation resources. Only with those cultivation resources could he quickly improve his strength and achieve his ultimate goal of revenge. Japan was a very special country. Although Tanshio didn't know the situation there, he believed that it should have some medicinal herbs and ores that he could use. It could be said that Kawako was his lackey that he had trained and would become his minion in the future to do things that were beneficial to him. At the imperial capital, at the Tang family's residence, Lu Changshi was alone as he stood outside the courtyard with some fruits in his hand, quietly waiting. A soldier stood straight by the door and coldly stared at him with a spear in his hand. Department Head Lu, Senior Tang, is in the backyard garden. Someone will take you to see him after you go in, said another soldier with a spear in a deep voice as he came out of the courtyard. Lu Changshi nodded in response and strode through the courtyard's first gate. A pond appeared in front of him. On the left side of the pond was a small round door with bright purple and red flowers in sight. Dozens of bird cages were hung on the lush green branches as the beautiful singing of birds could be heard. At the center of the garden, in the antique pavilion, the two brothers, Tanguisho and Tanguishing, were playing chess. The black and white go pieces almost covered the entire chessboard. Beside them, the bronze incense burner was emitting green smoke in spirals, filling the air with a faint fragrance that enveloped the small world. After Lu Changshi arrived, he quietly stood outside the pavilion and didn't disturb the two men playing chess. He just handed the fruits in his hand to the steward who followed him. "Take off your boots." A bright smile appeared on Tanguisho's wrinkled face as all the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. Tanguishing shook his head, but his expression was extraordinarily calm. His eyes shifted from the chessboard to Lu Changshi's expression as he beckoned him. "Senior Tang." Lu Changshi respectfully called out to the two. "Little Lu, what made you think of visiting this old man today?" asked Tanguishing with a smile. "I should have come earlier, actually," said Lu Changshi with a smile. "It's just that I've been busy with official business, so I've been running around outside. I just found some time to come here from Magic City. How's your health?" Magic City? Tanguishing already knew what happened in Magic City. His eyes instantly narrowed. Although Lu Changshi didn't say anything, he could faintly guess that Lu Changshi's arrival was probably related to his precious grandson. "You brat, you're as scheming as the stars in the sky. Tell me, what's your purpose in coming here?" Having his thoughts seen through, Lu Changshi awkwardly smiled and then seriously said, "Senior Tang, the main reason I came here this time is for Tanshio. You're his grandfather, so I'm sure he'll listen to you." Sure enough, Tang Wusheng sighed inwardly. The smile on his face also disappeared as he said, "Go on." "Senior Tang, I believe you've already received all the news in Magic City," said Lu Changshi. "It's all thanks to Tanshio this time that some tragedies were avoided. It could be said that if it weren't for Tanshio, Zhang Xinya's concert would have turned into a tragedy. The loss at the airport was also reduced to a minimum. I've already asked the higher-ups for Tanshio's merit, and he'll be rewarded in a few days. The reason I came to see you this time is because I want him to join our security department. Having him join us will definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. It'll play a greater role in the peace and stability of our country. I've personally invited him several times, but he refused all of them on the grounds of his studies. So can you persuade him to join our security department? You can rest assured. Although I can't give him too much authority, I can guarantee that I'll give him the best treatment. I can even guarantee that as long as he does a good job, I'll give him my position in the future." Tang Wusheng squinted his eyes. After listening to Lu Changshi's words, a smile appeared on his face again, and it was even more pronounced than before. However, recalling his grandson's character, he couldn't find any other words to describe it except for a wry smile. "Little Lu, Xiu may be my grandson, but he's been wandering outside all these years. I just found him a few months ago. Adults have their own thoughts. I may be his grandfather, but it's not appropriate for me to interfere with his decision. I already know about this matter, and I'll talk to him about it. As for the outcome, I can't guarantee you." Lu Changshi stared blankly for a moment and then asked in surprise, "Senior Tang, you can't make a decision for him?" "I can naturally help him if he's just an ordinary child," said Tang Guishing with a smile. "But he can make you beg me. Do you think he's just an ordinary child?" You're right, senior, said Lu Changxi with a wry smile. Will you stay for dinner tonight? Asked Tang Guoxing. No thanks. I have to rush back to the unit later, said Lu Changxi quickly. There are still some unsolved mysteries, and Tan Xiao doesn't want to tell me the truth, so I can only investigate it myself. What mystery? Asked Tang Guoxing with his brows raised. Lu Changxi hesitated for a moment and then said with all seriousness, this is actually another reason why I came here. A mysterious force has appeared at the crime scene this time. According to our surveillance footage, some suspected members of the extremists were taken away by some mysterious people. In addition, we checked all the traffic surveillance cameras within a 5-kilometer radius of the crime scene, as well as the surveillance cameras of the nearby commercial buildings, residences, and shops. There are dozens of suspicious people. What gives us a headache is that these mysterious people are very good at anti-detection. Among the hundreds of surveillance videos, none of the surveillance videos have captured the faces of those people. What? Tang Guoxing and Tang Guoshou were horrified. They used to be in control of great power, so they naturally knew some investigative methods. They couldn't believe it. Hundreds of surveillance areas and dozens of mysterious people, yet none of them had captured their faces. These people were too powerful, right? Tang Guoxing took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, You mean Xiao knows the identity of these people? I suspect that Tan Xiao knows their ins and outs. Lu Changxi nodded. It's very likely that he knows them. Lu Changxi nodded and said, because no one else knows about the appearance of these extremists except the State Security Department and the police. Countless thoughts churned inside Tang Guoxing's mind. He recalled the game between Tan Xiao and the Yao family in the south, as well as the mysterious powerhouses Tan Xiao summoned. Suddenly, he was somewhat enlightened. However, he naturally wouldn't speak out his thoughts in front of Lu Changxi, who had a special identity. There will be 3 updates today. Brothers and sisters, let's buy tickets. Chapter 473. Holy shit. I just finished writing this chapter, only to find that the Chapter 1 updated this morning has been harmonized again. I didn't write any sensitive content. Quiet Knight has spent most of his time and energy on revising the content of the chapter. How can he break out? As the saying goes, an old man who doesn't die is a thief. Tang Guoxing was one of the oldest people in the country, and he was shrewd to the bone. He gently placed his fingers on the chessboard and tapped rhythmically while indifferently saying, Minister Lu, your Ministry of State Security may have great power, but a mere suspicion can't prove anything, can it? I know all about Xiao's situation. I've sent people to investigate his life experience after I found him, but they didn't find any information about the mysterious man. Lu Changxi stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, I know I shouldn't suspect Tan Xiao, Senior Tang, but Tang Guoxing waved his hand to interrupt Lu Changxi and lightly said, Go ahead and investigate him if you don't believe me, Minister Lu. But no one can provoke my grandson. My family may not be as strong as before, but a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. I'm sure he'll know that my family's teeth are still very sharp if we keep an eye on him. Lu Changxi was also a smart man since he could reach his current status. He instantly understood Tang Guoxing's meaning and forced a smile. Since Senior Tang has spoken, then this matter is over. Senior Tang, you must persuade Tan Xiao. If he's willing to join our Ministry of State Security, I'll welcome him with open arms. All right. Tang Guoxing nodded indifferently. A few minutes later, following Lu Changxi's departure, Tang Guoshou grabbed a black chess piece with a thoughtful look in his eyes and slowly said, Dozens of mysterious experts who are proficient in counter-investigation and seem to have secretly eliminated some extremists without alerting the Ministry of State Security and the police. Very good. It seems that our grandson really has some trump cards that we don't know. Tang Guoxing picked up a white chess piece and lightly said, I always knew that Xiao had some trump cards, but I didn't expect this one to be stronger than I imagined. Rest assured, I won't worry about the future of our Tang family even if I have to see Buddha now. However, since I'm still alive, I can't let anyone threaten him. Third brother, your body is still strong. Go and let that Lu Changxi move his butt. He's no longer suitable to stay in the security department. Tang Guoshou frowned and said, Big brother, I'm afraid our Tang family will have to pay some price if we make Lu Changxi change his position. Tang Guosheng sneered and said, even if we have to pay a greater price, we still have to do it. Think of a way to push him and let him go to some good units. I believe that with his intelligence, he won't easily pursue what happened in Shanghai. Tang Guosheng nodded and said, I hope Xiu's trump card is beyond our imagination, else we'll lose this move. Tang Guosheng confidently said, it won't be a loss. Just those dozens of experts were enough to make me overjoyed. It's not like you don't know the abilities of those people in the security department. They are all elites who have gone through special training. Even they lost their temper. That's true. Shanghai, Blue Star Villa Complex. Tan Xiu's concept of the strong being respected in any environment had already been integrated into his bones. Therefore, he cultivated even more diligently. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, he silently circulated the surging star force in his body, resonating with the stardust in the universe and continuously absorbing the star force. He had already worn the jade pendant given to him by Li Laozhan on his neck. The dragon soul of the nine-clawed crimson dragon exuded a weak dragon soul force. Even though it was very weak, it was still very beneficial to Tan Xiu. Even when he breathed, he could absorb a trace of the dragon soul force into his body. A dragon could move unhindered in the myriad realms with its powerful body, while a phoenix could command the world with its powerful spirit. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis that Tan Xiu cultivated was a supreme cultivation technique for forging a demonic body, which was compatible with a dragon's body. Therefore, after the dragon soul force was absorbed into his body, it nourished his body all the time, washing away the impurities in his body and tempering the strength of his physique. Coupled with the magical effect of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, the strength of his physique improved at an extremely fast speed. The black hole in my dantian is shrinking? And more star force is gushing out of the black hole? What is it like inside the black hole? I can't explore it with my divine senses, but I can feel that it's not ordinary. To what extent will I be able to know the answer I want to know? Tan Xiu slowly opened his eyes, allowing the star force in his meridians to run freely, and silently pondered some things that puzzled him. Buzz. All of a sudden, an invisible force emanated from his dantian. To be precise, it came from the black hole. The huge suction seemed to be able to devour everything. The seed of the heavenly path universe tree, which was quietly suspended in his dantian, was easily pulled and swallowed by the devouring force. Damn it! Tan Xiu's face suddenly changed. The seed of the heavenly path universe tree was too important to him. It meant that his chances of stepping into the divine realm in the future would increase by thousands of times. The next moment, Tan Xiu's angry expression froze. As the seed of the heavenly path universe tree was swallowed into the black hole, a surging life force gushed out of the black hole. The life force was like a clear spring, nourishing Tan Xiu's physique, nourishing his internal organs, and even making the surging star force in his meridians more lively. However, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that the surging life force had mostly integrated into his soul halo. The soul halo that Tan Xiu could only see with his perception when he broke through to the supremacy stage in the immortal realm was now clearly visible to him. The soul halo that was the size of a needle tip could only be clearly seen when it was magnified countless times, and the naked eye could only see a tiny spot of light. However, after the surging life force integrated into it, the halo rapidly expanded. In just a few breaths, the soul halo had increased by about 10 times. Tan Xiu blinked his eyes. An indescribable feeling had been grasped by him. That was the enhancement of life force, that was the strength of the soul, that was the extension of life. He could feel that the life force had increased his life by at least 1,000 years. Logically speaking, with his current level of cultivation, living more than 200 years was already the limit. But the surging life force had increased his life by 1,000 years. If the immortals in the immortal realm knew about this, their eyes would turn red with jealousy and they would want to exchange for it at all costs. Death was like a lamp going out, and everything would be in vain. But that was the most meaningful thing. Tan Xiu floated up and quietly came to the window. Looking at the pitch-black scenery outside, he was half happy and half worried. He didn't know if the seed of the Heavenly Path Universe tree still existed, which added to the mystery in his heart. All of a sudden, he seemed to realize something and rushed out of the room. When he came to the living room on the first floor, he found a strong aroma of food coming from the kitchen. 5 thin and small figures were busy in the kitchen. Tang Xiaomu, who had turned around to take something, still had some white flour on his face. "Are you cooking?" Surprised, Tan Xiao came to the kitchen door and asked while looking at them. Tang Xiaomu looked back and said, "Boss, we saw some food in the fridge, flour and other vegetables in the cupboard, so we just cooked some. Are you hungry? If you are, wash your hands and we'll be able to eat soon." Tan Xiao replied with a blank expression. After washing his hands in the bathroom, he returned to the dining room and saw that the children had already put several dishes on the table. Although these dishes were ordinary, the aroma was very strong. "Boss, our grandfather who adopted us told us that food is the most important thing for the people when we were 5 years old and taught us how to cook," said Tang Xiaomu in a low voice. "Later, after we learned how to cook, we cooked every day. You taste it." Tan Xiao suddenly understood. He picked up the chopsticks and tasted the dishes, nodded and praised, "It's very good. You guys are great." A smile appeared on Tang Xiaomu's small face as he said, "Boss, eat more if you like it. We'll cook for you every day later." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "Although the dishes you cook are very delicious, your most important task is to study and cultivate. Therefore, let the nannies handle the cooking in the future. Several nannies should come here soon to take care of your daily life." "Don't waste money, boss," said Tang Xiaomu in a low voice. "We can take good care of ourselves." Tan Xiao said, "I know your abilities, and I'm very satisfied with you. But the task of studying and cultivating in the future is very important, so you can't waste your mind on other things. When your studies and cultivation reach a satisfactory level, you can choose what you like." "Alright." Tang Xiaomu gently nodded. Honk, honk. Outside the villa's courtyard, a car horn sounded. Tan Xiao's expression moved. He released his spiritual sense and instantly saw a car outside the courtyard. Ouyang Lulu was pressing the horn with a faint smile on her face. Taking out the key, Tan Xiao pressed the button. 2 minutes later, Ouyang Lulu walked into the villa's hall while carrying her handbag. After sniffing it, she immediately rushed to the dining room. "Oh, it's better to come early than to come at the right time. Give me a pair of chopsticks, I'm going to wash my hands." Having said that, she threw her handbag on a chair and strode toward the bathroom on the first floor. Tan Xiao rolled his eyes and muttered inwardly, "This girl really doesn't regard herself as an outsider." Quickly, Ouyang Lulu returned to the dining room and smilingly looked at the dishes on the table. She nodded and said, "I didn't expect you to hire a nanny, Tan Xiao. These dishes may look ordinary, but they're really fragrant. Let me taste them first." Tan Xiao patted the back of Ouyang Lulu's hand and snappily said, "It's so late and you haven't eaten yet? If you want to eat, just wait for a while. Those children haven't finished cooking yet." "Children? What children?" Ouyang Lulu stared blankly and looked at Tan Xiao with a surprised expression. Chapter 474. Boss, Big Sister Xiaojin has made another. Tang Xiaomu ran into the dining room with a plate of shredded pork with green peppers. Before he finished speaking, his eyes fell on Ouyang Lulu. Tan Xiao took the dish and said with a smile, "Xiaomu, this is your Auntie Lulu." "Hello, Auntie Lulu." Tang Xiaomu called out obediently. "Auntie?" Ouyang Lulu's mouth twitched a few times. She squeezed out a smile and nodded to Tang Xiaomu. Then, she looked at Tan Xiao with an inquiring expression. Tan Xiao said, "She's the 5 orphans I adopted. She's Tang Xiaomu, and the other 4 are Tang Xiaojin, Tang Xiaoshui, Tang Xiaohua, and Tang Xiaodu. These dishes are cooked by them." Ouyang Lulu got up and strode toward the kitchen. When she saw the 4 little figures busy in the kitchen, she immediately turned around and returned to the dining room. She glared at Tan Xiao and shouted, "Hey, Tan Xiao, do you still have any humanity left in you? These 5 are still children, yet you want them to cook? You don't want to eat?" Tan Xiao asked. "If not, go to the living room and wait for me." You? Ouyang Lulu rolled her eyes at Tan Xiao. She then pulled Tang Xiaomu's hand and whispered, Xiaomu, let's go to the kitchen. Auntie will help you cook. About 10 minutes later, several dishes were brought to the dining room. Even a bowl of steaming white rice was placed in front of Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao was not that hungry, but the children's cooking aroused his appetite. So, after eating and drinking to his heart's content, Tan Xiao looked at the 5 children as well as Ouyang Lulu and said, You 5 take a break and then go read some books. Lulu, let's go to the living room and have a chat. Ouyang Lulu followed Tan Xiao to the living room and asked, Why did you call me out? I haven't washed the dishes yet. Tan Xiao said, I'll shower later. You came here so late at night. You must have something to do, right? Ouyang Lulu seemed to recall something and quickly ran back to the restaurant. After coming out with her handbag, she took out a red invitation and handed it to Tan Xiao with both hands, saying, Boss Tang, my restaurant will open tomorrow. You're welcome to attend. Restaurant opening? You've been so secretive all this time. Did you come to Shanghai to open a restaurant? Tan Xiao was surprised. Ouyang Lulu proudly said, That's for sure. All of my belongings had been thrown in, and now I was as poor as a beggar. However, starting tomorrow, the restaurant will have money coming in, and my financial crisis will be over. How was it? Do me the honor? There's an empty seat for you at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Tan Xiao took the invitation, shook his head and said with a smile, Sure, I'll come to support you, but I'll pass on the ribbon-cutting ceremony. I'm not a big shot, nor do I have any fame. Well, in short, it's not my style to cut the ribbon-cutting ceremony for you. Ouyang Lulu walked to Tan Xiao's side and sat next to him. She pulled Tan Xiao's arm with both hands and spoke with a bit of a coquettish tone. I know your character, but I won't do it again. You're the best among all the people I know. This restaurant is my private property, and it doesn't belong to the Ouyang family. I really hope you can be one of the people cutting the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Tan Xiao was a bit helpless inside. But looking at Ouyang Lulu's appearance, he could only force a smile and said, Forget it. You said it yourself, so I won't do it again. Anyways, you won't invite the media for the opening of your restaurant, will you? No. There's absolutely no shadow of the media. Ouyang Lulu quickly shook her head. I invited some officials from the city government, as well as Big Star Zhang. As for the others, aside from my Paradise Manor staff, there are also some guests who have been attracted by the recent publicity. That's right, there should be some business people in Shanghai who have business dealings with our Ouyang family. It's quite a big one. Tan Xiao said with a smile. I've invested all my assets, so how can it not be big? Ouyang Lulu said. But I firmly believe that the Paradise Manor's business will be very hot. That's right, I'll tell you a secret. I stole the dishes from the Everlasting Feast Hall and the Seaside Straight Manor. I even signed a meat cooperation contract with your uncle, Tang Dong. Some of the specialties are made from the fierce beast meat of the Seaside Straight Manor. They're delicious, and I guarantee that the guests will have their mouths full of grease. It seems like you've really done a lot of things. Tan Xiao couldn't help laughing. That's for sure. Ouyang Lulu proudly smiled. Half an hour later, Ouyang Lulu left in a hurry because she was facing the problem of the opening ceremony. But just as she left, Mu Weinian came with a lot of big and small bags. What are these things? Tan Xiao looked at the dozens of big and small bags as well as Mu Weinian, who was panting with sweat on her forehead. I bought some snacks for Xiaojin and the other 4 as well as some clothes, Mu Weinian said with a smile. That suitcase over there and that travel bag are my luggage. Our dormitory has been having power outages recently and it's very noisy, so I'll be staying here tonight and tomorrow night. I have to rush back to the imperial capital early in the morning the day after tomorrow. This is not a hotel. Tan Xiao muttered inwardly. He waved his hand and said, You pick the room yourself. I still have classes tomorrow morning, so I'm going to rest first. Alright. Mu Weinian picked up the big and small bags and headed to the room where Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 children were staying. The next day, Tan Xiao had classes at school in the morning and arrived at the address marked on the invitation at noon. To his surprise, the Paradise Manor occupied a large area and had a very good geographical environment. It was only 20 kilometers away from the University of Magic and Magic. The place was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, brimming with a festive atmosphere. After Tan Xiao arrived, he found a large parking lot full of cars, many of which were luxury cars. He took the sightseeing car specially used to greet the guests and came to the front of the triangle-shaped buildings of the manor. He secretly sighed at the wisdom of the designer. There were 3 buildings, each of which was 3 stories high. There was an antique pagoda-like pavilion, a European-style Western-style building, and a modern pavilion. As for the pagoda-like pavilion, it stood in the middle of the building. Most of the guests were gathered at the fountain square outside the pavilion. Tan Xiao glanced around and found no acquaintances, so he walked inside. When he saw Ouyang Lulu greeting several guests in the pavilion's hall, he just waved his arm at her and then went to the lounge area in the corner. After sitting on the sofa, he took out his mobile and played with it. This man is really... Ouyang Lulu was secretly annoyed after seeing Tan Xiao's performance. After greeting the guests, she strode toward Tan Xiao and said with dissatisfaction, "Why are you so free? Come with me to greet the guests." Tan Xiao was confused and said, "I'm not the boss, nor am I a manager. Why should I greet the guests? Besides, I don't know who those guests are. This paradise manor will be my dowry in the future." Ouyang Lulu angrily said, "What does your dowry have to do with me?" Tan Xiao snappily said. Ouyang Lulu touched her forehead and then sat next to Tang Xiao. She pulled his arm and said, "This Ouyang Lulu's vision is too high. You're the only one who can enter my eyes. You're my future man, and this paradise manor is also your property. Therefore, you must come with me to greet the guests. I'll introduce each guest to you." Tan Xiao's expression sank. He pushed away Ouyang Lulu's hand and said, "Lulu, you're my friend. I hope you don't make this kind of joke. I told you that I won't have a girlfriend in the next few years. Marrying a wife and having children is something far away from me. You know my character, so I hope you can stop here." A trace of disappointment flashed in Ouyang Lulu's eyes. She felt a bit uncomfortable inside, but she still said with all seriousness, "I'm not joking. Even if I don't introduce you to others today, you'll still be my man in the future. You said you won't have a girlfriend now, so I'll wait. You said you'll marry a wife and have children in the future, so I'll also wait. I, Ouyang Lulu, can afford to wait even if our hair turns white." Tan Xiao didn't know what to say to this dogskin plaster. Ouyang Lulu once again pulled Tan Xiao's arm and said, "What you and me? Don't tell me you don't have to take responsibility for stealing my heart? I don't care. In short, you'll be my woman in the future. My property is also your property. If you want it now, I'll give it to you now. If you want it in the future, I'll give it to you." Suddenly, her eyes turned as she whispered with a smile, "That's right. This is my property. If you think it's not enough, the Ouyang family will give you a lot of dowry in the future. I'll help you ask for more when the time comes. In any case, the Ouyang family is rich." Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he looked at her. Suddenly, a wise saying left by the ancestor emerged in his mind: "A married daughter is like spilled water." This was really a case of girls turning to outsiders. If I have a daughter in the future, I'll just strangle her to death. Such a ridiculous idea popped up inside Tan Xiao's mind. "Boss, several city leaders have come." A well-dressed middle-aged woman came to Ouyang Lulu's front and said, "Tan Xiao, are you really not going with me to welcome the guests?" asked Ouyang Lulu. Tan Xiao shook his head and firmly said, "I'm not going." Ouyang Lulu loosened his arm and helplessly said, "Since you don't want to go, I won't force you. Manager Huang, keep an eye on him and don't let him slip away. Bring him here when the ribbon is cut. Remember, he's the biggest boss of this paradise manor. His order is more effective than mine." "Boss, are you mistaken?" asked Manager Huang with disbelief. I'm not mistaken. I know what I'm talking about," said Ouyang Lulu decisively. "He will soon be my boyfriend, and in the future he will also be my husband. After that, he will also be the father of my child." Manager Huang looked at Tan Xiao with a strange expression before shifting to Ouyang Lulu. His mouth twitched a few times before he nodded and said, "I understand." Chapter 475. Tan Xiao had a strong self-control, but facing Manager Huang's strange eyes, he still felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He almost couldn't help but get up and leave. Manager Huang, right? You don't need to care about me. Go and do your thing. When it's time to cut the ribbon, just come and call me. Also, Ouyang Lulu is a bit feverish today. Her brain might be a bit confused, so don't take her joke seriously. Interesting. Manager Huang almost laughed when she heard Tan Xiao's words. She had been following Ouyang Lulu for several years and could be considered as Ouyang Lulu's right-hand man, which was why she was appointed as the general manager of Shanghai's Paradise Manor. She knew Ouyang Lulu's character like the back of her hand. She had never imagined that the dignified Ouyang clan's eldest daughter, a proud daughter of heaven who had pride flowing in her bones, would actually be so thick-skinned to pursue a boy. Most importantly, this boy seemed to be a few years younger than her, and he even used all sorts of excuses and was unwilling to do so. The iron tree blossoms, the sow climbs the tree. Manager Huang looked down on Tan Xiao, but she found Ouyang Lulu's behavior particularly interesting. However, she didn't want to waste time with Tan Xiao during this critical period. She slightly nodded with a fake smile and turned around to leave. Tan Xiao's eyes retracted from Manager Huang's back as he left. He felt quite bored and didn't feel like playing with his mobile anymore. He grabbed a fashion magazine on the table next to him, laid down on the sofa, and directly covered his face with the magazine, preparing to take a nap. Time flew by. While he was in a daze, two arguing voices entered his ears. Brother Jiang, the process of growing up is like breaking out of a cocoon and becoming a butterfly. Struggling to shed all the immaturity and ugliness, shaking light and beautiful wings under the sun, sparkling and slightly trembling in happiness. For example, Ouyang Lulu has shed her immaturity and matured day by day. Now, she has come to Shanghai to work hard. Today's big scene was all caused by her alone. Brother Qin, although what you said is somewhat reasonable, I have some other opinions. Growing up is constantly facing some sad things until you know what it means to experience the vicissitudes of life. Brother Jiang, your words do sound like my master's, Jiang Qin said with a smile. Your master? Brother Qin, you actually have a master? Your teacher is? No. Tan Xiao sat up from the sofa and removed the fashion magazine covering his face. Then he lightly said, I'm his master. On the sofa opposite the coffee table, the two of them looked at Tan Xiao at the same time. Master, you're here too? When Chen Zhizhong first came over, he found someone sleeping on the opposite sofa. Although he felt that this situation was a little strange, he did not recognize Tan Xiao's identity. Tan Xiao nodded and said, Ouyang Lulu sent the wedding invitation to me, so I came to support her. As for you, why did you come to Shanghai? Chen Zhizhong respectfully said, I came to Shanghai to sign a contract and happened to hear from Ouyang Lulu's big brother, Ouyang Lei. She opened a restaurant in Shanghai, so I came to congratulate her. Master, I know you're studying at Shanghai University. I didn't want to disturb you, so I didn't plan to look for you. I didn't expect to see you here. Tan Xiao nodded and looked at the other person. Jiang Feng was dumbfounded. The relationship between Tan Xiao and Chen Zhizhong made him confused. After all, Chen Zhizhong's age was more than half of Tan Xiao's, yet he turned out to be Tan Xiao's disciple. It was really hard for him to accept it. With a calm expression, Chen Zhizhong said, Brother Jiang, we're both martial artists. I think you should understand the truth of the master. My master is very powerful, much more powerful than me. I think even you. Jiang Feng forced a smile and interrupted Chen Zhizhong's words, saying, Brother Chen, I know Mr. Tang is very powerful. I've suffered under him before. What's going on? Chen Zhizhong slightly stared blankly and turned to look at Tan Xiao with a strange expression. Tan Xiao lightly said, his victorious dragon martial school's people attracted a calamity and he was implicated. Chen Zhizhong was very astute and instantly understood the meaning of Tan Xiao's words. He then said with a smile, if that's the case, then I don't need to explain anymore. Master, Brother Jiang is actually a straightforward and upright person. He's a good martial arts master. However, his victorious dragon martial school has a large number of people, so it's inevitable that some black sheep will appear. Tan Xiu nodded and lightly said, "You must act according to your ability. Nothing can be accomplished without rules and regulations. Only strict dogma can cultivate real talents." Jiang Feng gratefully looked at Chen Zhizhong and nodded to Tan Xiu, saying, "I'll keep your teachings in mind, Mr. Tang. The number of people in my victorious dragon martial school is now only 1/5 of what it used to be. Furthermore, I've reformulated the rules and anyone who dares to violate them will be severely punished." A smile finally appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he said, "A fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. I'm sure you've tasted the bitter fruit of being implicated, so there won't be any problems in the future. All right, you two have a chat. I'm going out for a stroll." Tan Xiu got up and walked a few steps. Suddenly, he stopped and turned to look at Chen Zhizhong, asking, "When are you going back to Star City?" "I originally planned to go back today, but it's too late after the opening ceremony of the Paradise Manor, so I'm going back tomorrow." "What's your order, Master?" "Come with me after the opening ceremony," Tan Xiu said. "We'll go back to Star City the day after tomorrow." "All right." A touch of joy appeared in Chen Zhizhong's eyes as he replied respectfully. He had been looking for Tan Xiu recently because the true qi inside his body had been completely transformed into true essence, yet his cultivation speed was too slow. His strength had not improved much until now. According to his understanding of his little junior sister Gu Yin should have surpassed him in terms of cultivation. Therefore, he needed Tan Xiu's guidance and help. As Tan Xiu left, Jiang Feng praised, "Mr. Tang's strength is indeed very strong. I've broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm, yet I'm still not his match. I even have a feeling that even if I make another breakthrough and double my strength, I'm afraid I'm still not his match." A proud look appeared on Chen Zhizhong's face as he said with a slightly proud expression, "He's naturally very strong since he can be my master." "Brother Chen, Mr. Tang may be very strong, but I still don't get it. With his age, how can you?" Jiang Feng curiously asked. Chen Zhizhong lightly smiled and said, "My master just said that the one who achieves is the master. I want to reach a higher realm in martial arts, so it's normal for me to worship him as my master. I forgot to tell you that my cultivation is no longer the same as before because of my master. How about we have a match if there's a chance?" Jiang Feng couldn't help laughing and said, "Brother Chen, let's forget about it. Mr. Tang's strength is very strong, I'm sure of it. But half a year ago, you were far away from the martial arts grandmaster realm. Even if you have his guidance and your cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds, I don't think you can reach the martial arts grandmaster realm, right?" A smile was revealed on the corner of Chen Zhizhong's mouth. Martial arts grandmaster? With his current strength, even if 8 martial arts grandmasters joined hands, they would not be his match. Looking at Jiang Feng's slightly contemptuous expression, he lightly smiled and said, "When we return to Star City, I'll personally go to the victorious Dragon Martial School to compare notes with you. I hope you won't deliberately lose when the time comes." Jiang Feng laughed and said, "No problem. Then I'll be waiting for you." On the tree-lined path outside, Tan Xiu had his hands in his pockets as he enjoyed the beautiful scenery inside the manor. To his surprise, there were a lot of rare birds and beasts in the lush and verdant woods on both sides. All of these animals were locked in iron cages, with 2 snow-white tigers being particularly eye-catching. Ouyang Lulu has spent a lot of effort to tinker with this manor. However, many of these rare birds and beasts are protected by the state. Does she have the right to keep them in captivity? Tan Xiu thought for a moment and suddenly revealed a helpless smile on his face. He felt that he was really bored to actually care about such trivial matters. Suddenly, his complexion suddenly changed as a thought emerged in his mind. As the thought sprouted in his mind, he immediately clenched his fists and an intense light burst out from his eyes. Keeping them in captivity? That's right. Back when he was in the immortal world, he had kept a lot of immortal beasts in captivity. Many of them were kept in captivity since they were young. He had personally refined the beast god pill to feed them. After they had opened their spiritual wisdom, he had injected the cultivation technique suitable for immortal beasts into their sea of consciousness. At that time, he had cultivated a lot of powerful immortal beasts. That's right. I need the bones of fierce beasts for my cultivation, but hunting them is too troublesome. I might as well keep some wild beasts in captivity and feed them with the beast god pill. Then they will transform. If they can open their spiritual wisdom within my expectation, I can train them to be able to sit up and help them in battle. But if they can't open their spiritual wisdom within the expected time, I can kill them and use them for my cultivation. Also, I have tens of millions of medicinal fields in the immortal world with countless rare herbs. If I can also grow them on a large scale, not only can I use them for my cultivation in the future, but also the people I train can use them. Earth is too small. Once I and the people I train have a higher cultivation level, I'm afraid it won't be enough even if I collect all the resources on the entire Earth. It seems I have to prepare in advance. Money? I'm afraid it will be lacking. After all, a lot of land is going to be an extremely huge amount. 9 Dragons Island will be able to grow herbs and raise wild beasts in captivity, but I must also establish bases in other places. I need to carefully select the most suitable place for captivity and planting. The investment of funds and the management of personnel must also be solved. Thoughts kept churning in Tan Xiu's mind. When he sorted out his thoughts and memorized all these ideas, he clenched his fists and released a firm look in his eyes. Chapter 476. Time fleeted by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already noon. This time was also the auspicious time that Ouyang Lulu had chosen. Therefore, after receiving the call, Tan Xiu took the sightseeing car and hurried to the gate. Of the hundreds of guests who came to congratulate and witness the establishment of Paradise Manor, most of them had already arrived. Each of them had a smile on their faces. They were either chatting in groups of 3 or 4, or chatting with Ouyang Lulu and the few senior managers of Paradise Manor and sending their blessings. Among them were several young talents from Shanghai's business circle, flattering the big star Zhang Xinya, hoping to get close to her. The auspicious time has arrived. Please welcome our Paradise Manor's boss, Ouyang Lulu, city leader, Mr. Wang Tao, Shanghai Chamber of Commerce's vice president, Mr. Zhang Yueming, the world-famous singer, Ms. Zhang Xinya, and Mr. Tang Xiu to cut the ribbon for the establishment of Paradise Manor, said Manager Huang with a smile while holding a microphone. At this moment, there were 6 etiquette ladies in front of the gate, quietly waiting with red ribbons in their hands. Tan Xiu? Aside from Ouyang Lulu and Zhang Xinya, the city leader, Wang Tao, and the vice president of Shanghai's Chamber of Commerce, Zhang Yueming, were surprised. Zhang Yueming knew Tan Xiu and also knew Tan Xiu's identity. He was just curious why Tan Xiu would appear on such an occasion. But Wang Tao was puzzled because he had never heard of Tan Xiu. Boss Ouyang, who is this Tan Xiu? Wang Tao stood beside Ouyang Lulu and asked with a lowered voice. Ouyang Lulu chuckled and said, "He's my idol, and also the object of my pursuit. Of course, he has many other identities, so I won't tell you one by one. I believe that if Tan Xiu wants to develop in Shanghai, Mayor Wang will know him." Wang Tao was secretly speechless. He admired Ouyang Lulu's straightforwardness, but he couldn't help but ridicule inwardly. Such an important opening ceremony, yet she actually invited an unknown figure to cut the ribbon. If this news were to spread out, wouldn't it be a joke? However, Ouyang Lulu was the boss of Paradise Manor. Wang Tao was too lazy to care about her decision. The reason why he could come to cut the ribbon this time was entirely because of the Ouyang family of Jingmen Island. After all, his family and the Ouyang family had a deep relationship. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Tan Xiu came to the back of the red ribbon. He originally planned to stand at the very edge, but after cutting the ribbon, he would directly hide to the side. But he didn't expect that Zhang Xinya would smile and pull him to switch places with him, giving him the position next to Ouyang Lulu. Hua! The hundreds of guests in front of them all revealed surprised expressions, and even began to whisper to each other in private. What's going on? Zhang Xinya was a big star, the most famous public figure. Where did that Tan Xiu come from? When he was introduced, it was just his name. What right does he have to stand inside and let Zhang Xinya stand outside? Does Zhang Xinya know that Tan Xiu? Where did he come from? He actually made superstar Zhang give up her spot inside to him? The position of the ribbon-cutting ceremony is also very particular. There's no doubt that Ouyang Lulu is standing in the middle. She's, after all, the Paradise Manor's boss, and it's natural for Mayor Wang to stand beside her. After all, it represents the government's recognition and support. But an unknown nobody actually stands on the other side of Boss Ouyang. Isn't this a bit unreasonable? Yeah. Zhang Yueming is the vice president of Shanghai's Chamber of Commerce. Not only is he a billionaire, but his position is also very prominent. He's standing at the very edge, so what qualifications does that surnamed Tang have to stand inside? What the hell is Zhang Xinya doing? Along with the discussion of the crowd, Manager Huang shot a deep look at Zhang Xinya and Tan Xiu, and then handed the microphone to Ouyang Lulu, who was smiling. Today, I'm very honored to invite all of you to attend the opening ceremony of our Paradise Manor, said Ouyang Lulu with a smile. Thank you, everyone. Please take care of my Paradise Manor in the future and support us. I'm a straightforward person and don't want to talk nonsense. Therefore, I hereby announce the establishment of the Paradise Manor. Bam, bam, the deafening sound of firecrackers billowed not far away. Cut the ribbon, Manager Huang said aloud. The 5 VIPs responsible for cutting the ribbon used scissors to cut the red ribbon, while the bands on both sides began to beat the gongs and drums, playing the music of blessings. Applause sounded from the hundreds of guests, and the whole scene was full of jubilation. Ouyang Lulu took the microphone again, looked at everyone and said with a smile, "The ribbon-cutting ceremony is over. Our Paradise Manor has prepared delicious food and the best wine in the world. God's nectar. Starting from today, our Paradise Manor will set up a lucky draw. Any guest who participates in the lucky draw may get a bottle of God's nectar. Of course, there are only 5 spots every day, and each person can get 2 bottles of God's nectar. The price will also be slightly higher than other places' God's nectar." In an instant, the hundreds of guests present all revealed shocked expressions. Many of them even asked loudly, "What's going on? Boss Ouyang, is what you said true? You actually provide God's nectar here? Don't tell me you have a cooperation with the Magnificent Tang Corporation?" Yeah. The God's nectar produced by the Magnificent Tang Corporation is now a well-known top-notch wine, and every drinker takes it as an honor to drink it. But the sales model of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, as well as the quantity of God's nectar they sell, is too little. You can't buy it unless you buy it in their exclusive stores. Boss Ouyang, if I double the price of each bottle, can your Paradise Manor help me buy a batch of God's nectar? If you agree, I'll immediately transfer the money to your account. I'm willing to buy it at 5 times the price. 10 times. Ouyang Lulu was dumbfounded as she looked at the people in front of her. She never thought that using God's nectar as a gimmick would lead to such a situation. It must be noted that she had personally gone to Star City several times to pester Kong Xia. She even had a small agreement in private, yet she could only get 5,000 bottles of God's nectar every year. Finally, she quickly glanced at Tan Xiu and found that Tan Xiu was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Everyone, please calm down. As a matter of fact, I also want to earn this money. But the big boss of the Magnificent Tang Corporation is too stingy. I've been pestering and pestering him, and even offered to marry him, only then did he agree to give me a little share every year. But for my Paradise Manor, I've taken it all out. If you want to buy it, then go directly to the Magnificent Tang Corporation." At the side, Tan Xiu rolled his eyes inwardly and secretly cursed, "This girl is simply lying through her teeth. Is it really fun to slander yourself?" He would never stand up at this time even if he was beaten to death. Although he was somewhat famous now, in today's environment, these guests obviously had a good status and didn't recognize him at all. They didn't even know that he was the big boss of the Magnificent Tang Corporation. He wouldn't be stupid enough to stand up and be surrounded by everyone to curry favor with him. Fortunately, Ouyang Lulu didn't want to let the God's nectar seize the limelight of today's grand opening, so she said with a smile, "Everyone, the sightseeing cars are ready at the gate. Please come in. I'll definitely let everyone eat and drink well today and have a good time." As everyone entered, under the guidance of the welcoming ladies, they entered the tower-shaped restaurant in the middle. Fragrant dishes were served on the table, and each table was provided with 2 bottles of God's nectar. As the protagonist of today's event, Ouyang Lulu was always accompanied by high-ranking officials and nobles. Since Tan Xiao didn't like such a noisy scene, he quietly retreated and found a quiet rest area. He asked the staff here for some paper money and silently recorded the names of the medicinal herbs he was going to plant and the list of the wild beasts he was going to rear in captivity. A fragrant breeze blew past. A woman in a white dress and white casual shoes came to Tan Xiao. "Grand Master." Tan Xiao looked up. When he saw Gu Xiaoxue, he looked slightly dazed and immediately asked in surprise, "Why are you here, Xiaoxue?" "Lulu invited me. We're good sisters. Besides, Grand Master is also in Shanghai, so I came." Gu Xiaoxue chuckled. "It's just that I don't like crowds, so I didn't appear in front of everyone. I just learned from Manager Huang that Grand Master wasn't in the banquet hall, so I asked around and came here." Tan Xiao pointed to the opposite side and said with a smile, "Let's sit down and talk. Actually, I was just about to contact you and ask you to come here. Take a look at these. I just thought of them." Gu Xiaoxue took it and carefully read it. Then she said with a puzzled expression, "Grand Master, these 2 lists. One of them records the names of medicinal herbs, while the other one records the birds and beasts. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to plant medicinal herbs on a large scale and rear wild beasts. I'm going to use the immortal law to transform these wild beasts into fierce beasts or spirit beasts," said Tan Xiao with all seriousness. "Your idea is somewhat similar to Master's." Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. It's just that when Master proposed this idea, his physical condition got worse and worse, and he eventually gave up on it. "Grand Master, if the planting and rearing are successful, then we can get a lot of cultivation resources." "That's right," said Tan Xiao. "If we want to cultivate a large number of powerhouses, cultivation resources are indispensable. Therefore, my initial idea is to plant 200 acres of medicinal herbs. I'll personally arrange an array to make the medicinal herbs grow quickly. With my current ability, I can make the medicinal herbs grow for a year, which is equivalent to 10 years outside the array, or even more. If we have 8 to 10 years, we can get a lot of medicinal herbs with 100-year-old efficacy. As for the wild beasts in captivity, we also need to arrange an array, but their growth speed will be a lot slower. But after 8 to 10 years, we can distinguish which wild beasts can grow into spirit beasts, and which ones can't open their spiritual wisdom and can only become low-level fierce beasts. Today's 2nd chapter, there's still the 3rd chapter tonight. Are you surprised? Can I have 2 tickets? Chapter 477. Tan Xiao slowly explained his idea, causing Gu Xiaoxue's eyes to sparkle with splendor. She even fantasized about the scene of harvesting the results in the future. Finally, after Tan Xiao finished speaking, he took the 2 pieces of paper and asked, "Some time ago, I gave a sum of money to Kang Xia due to the magnificent Tang Corporation's development. I only have 2 billion yuan left now. But if I want to complete my idea, I'm afraid this amount won't be enough even if it's multiplied by 10. So, how much money can the everlasting feast hall provide?" Gu Xiaoxue thought for a moment and said, 28 billion yuan is all the funds I have in my card. Also, if I can transfer some funds from other businesses, I should be able to transfer another 10 to 20 billion yuan. Tan Xiao thought for a while and said, "You don't need to transfer funds from other businesses. Just transfer 9 billion yuan to my account after you return to Jingmen Island. An initial investment of 10 billion yuan should be more or less enough. I'll look for you again if the scale is expanded later. You don't need to wait for me to return to Jingmen Island, Grand Master. I can transfer the money to you now." Gu Xiaoxue smiled. A few minutes later, Gu Xiaoxue put away her mobile, looked up and smilingly said, "I've transferred the money to you, Grand Master. But the bank manager just called me and confirmed that the money will be transferred within 3 working days." Tan Xiao nodded and said, "It's best to buy land in the mountains with rich spiritual qi. Besides, the land in the mountains is cheap, but it's quite difficult to develop it. But we can do it if we throw the money. It's just that I haven't determined the specific location yet." Do you have any good places to recommend? Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, according to your idea, we need to pay attention to the weather, temperature, topography, water conservancy, and other conditions to build a place to plant medicinal herbs and raise wild beasts. I rarely go out and have only been to a few famous mountains and rivers, so I don't have any good places to recommend. However, I do have an idea. What is it? Asked Tan Xiu. I think it's better to buy some islands instead of buying land in the country, said Gu Xiaoxue. First of all, those islands can be rented and the price is very cheap. Many islands have rich spiritual qi, so it's very suitable for planting medicinal herbs and raising wild beasts. Of course, the most important thing was to look after them. If we were in the country, we would need a large number of people to carry out security work. However, it's different on an island. We only need to send a group of experts to be stationed there and use high-tech surveillance equipment to form an absolutely safe zone. Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said, "You're right. I didn't think of this just now. Jingmen Island is located in the South China Sea. I think it would be best to plant medicinal herbs and raise wild beasts on an island in the South China Sea. How about this? I'll take some time to go to the South Sea and conduct a field trip. Once it's confirmed, we'll immediately discuss the lease and start the construction. I'll finalize the list of security members in advance, Grandmaster," replied Gu Xiaoxue with a chuckle. "How many people do you think we need?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "It's too early to talk about this now, but it's still necessary to prepare in advance. How about this? Pick 50 core members first. Don't tell them what they're going to do. Once everything has been arranged properly, I will personally test the 50 core members. Once they receive my approval, they will bring a group of outer members to the island and be stationed there." Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded. After talking about the proper business, Tan Xiu looked at Gu Xiaoxue's bright eyes and didn't know what to say for a while. Although he and Gu Xiaoxue had been in contact for a long time, Gu Xiaoxue's temperament was relatively cold. The two rarely had a common topic apart from serious matters. After being silent for 2 minutes, Tan Xiu then said, "Xiaoxue, go eat something first if you have nothing else to do. Take good care of Yen, or after you return to Jingmen Island." "I will," said Gu Xiaoxue with a nod. Tan Xiu suddenly recalled something and quickly said, "Wait a minute, when are you going back to Jingmen Island?" "I've already seen you, Grandmaster. The Paradise Manor has opened for business, so I'm going back to Jingmen Island in the afternoon," said Gu Xiaoxue. "Since you're here, take 5 children to Jingmen Island on the way back," said Tan Xiu. "They are also orphans I adopted and are now living in the Blue Star Villa complex where I live. Remember to put them together with the previous children. These 5 little guys have some foundation in martial arts, so I've also taught them a set of body forging technique. Increase your strength a bit when training them." "I'll go with you when you go back, Grandmaster," said Gu Xiaoxue with a chuckle. "Then I'll take them away." "All right, I'll call you when I leave," said Tan Xiu. "That's right, there's a man called Chen Zhizhong in the banquet hall. He's my in-name disciple. Take some time to see him." Gu Xiaoxue's eyes lit up. She nodded and said, "I'll go there later." Following Gu Xiaoxue's departure, Tan Xiu put away the 2 lists full of words and comfortably nestled on the sofa. He didn't want to think about anything else and was ready to lie down and cultivate for a while. Although the star force in his meridians could circulate on its own without his control, he was suspicious that the star force's circulation speed was obviously much faster, and the absorption speed of the sun's power was also a lot faster. It didn't take long for footsteps to be heard. Tang Xiu didn't pay any attention to him and just laid down comfortably. "Mom, it doesn't seem to be so cold here." A childish voice sounded in Tan Xiu's ears. It was a woman in her 30s with shoulder-length hair and bright earrings. She had a pretty face and was carrying a small school bag. Her name was Gu Hui, and she followed her husband to attend the opening ceremony of the Paradise Manor today. However, half an hour ago, the child was a bit uncomfortable and showed symptoms of a cold. Therefore, she didn't have the mood to eat. She took her son out and waited for her husband to finish his business and then prepared to go to the hospital. "Dong dong, don't make trouble. This uncle is asleep." Don't disturb him. The 4 or 5-year-old boy looked at Tan Xiu and silently nodded. However, his small body moved closer to Tan Xiu, and a comfortable expression appeared on his slightly pale face. Tan Xiu finally opened his eyes. After glancing at the mother and son in front of him, his eyes finally fell on the little boy. What made him frown was that he could feel a deathly aura from the little boy. "Little guy, can uncle give you a hug?" The little boy looked up at his mother. Gu Hui quickly said, "Sir, my son has caught a cold. I'm worried that I'll infect you, so." Tan Xiu shook his head with a smile. He picked up the little boy and put his fingers on his pulse. After feeling it for more than 20 seconds, Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and looked up at Gu Hui, asking, "Has there been a murder case in your family recently?" Gu Hui was confused and asked, "A murder case?" Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and said, "If there hasn't been a murder case in your family, then the person closest to your son must have personally experienced it. And it must have happened no more than 2 days ago." Gu Hui frowned and grabbed her son. She took 2 steps back and said with a vigilant face, "Sir, I don't understand what you mean. There has never been a murder case in my family. My husband and I are the closest people to my son, and we have never personally experienced a murder case. I hope you don't talk nonsense." Having said that, she was about to leave with her son in her arms. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and looked at her back, saying, "If I tell you that your son doesn't have a cold, but is stained with death qi, and this situation can't be cured even if you go to the hospital, I don't know if you will still leave. Of course, if you doubt and leave, your son is still too young. The death qi will erode his vitality and eventually kill him within 7 days." Gu Hui was an atheist. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, she immediately turned around and angrily glared at Tan Xiu, saying, "Don't blame me for calling someone to take you away if you talk nonsense again." Having said that, she immediately left with the boy in her arms. Tan Xiu shook his head. The heavenly Tao's karma had a deep impact on ordinary people. Even the current him was constantly under the influence of the heavenly Tao. Only if he could break the shackles above his head and ascend to become an immortal could he get rid of the heavenly Tao's interference. Riches and honor are determined by heaven. Even though he had encountered such a thing, if the child's mother did not believe him and did not allow him to investigate clearly, he would be willing to dispel the death aura on the child's body. After a few days of being corroded by the death aura, the child would die, which was also his fate. In the tower-shaped restaurant, hundreds of guests filled the banquet hall on the 2nd floor. In front of the luxurious table, everyone was full of praises as they tasted the delicacies and sipped the god's nectar. At the innermost table in the middle, Ouyang Lulu was accompanying the city leader Wang Tao, Zhang Yueming, Zhang Xinya, and 8 or 9 other high-ranking guests as they chatted and ate. At this moment, Gu Xiaoshue's white dress fluttered as though she was a fairy descending to the mortal world. She leisurely walked into the banquet hall, attracting the attention of countless people as she came to Ouyang Lulu's side. "Sister Xue, sit here with me." Ouyang Lulu didn't expect that Gu Xiaoshue, who didn't want to come for dinner before, would come. She immediately looked pleasantly surprised. "I'm here to see Martial Uncle Lulu." Gu Xiaoshue shook her head. After saying that, she asked for an empty wine glass from Ouyang Lulu and then came to Chen Zhizhong's side. She then chuckled and said, "Martial Uncle, Xiaoshue didn't know that you also came here. I hope you can forgive me for not coming to greet you before. Martial Nephew salutes you with this glass of wine." Chen Zhizhong stood up, but Gu Xiaoshue quickly persuaded him to sit down again. He took the glass of wine that she had just poured for him and said with a smile, "Have you seen Master?" "Grand Master is resting in the rest area," said Gu Xiaoshue. "He told me that you're here." "Master? Grand Master?" Everyone else at the table wore strange expressions as they looked at Chen Zhizhong and Gu Xiaoshue with incredulous expressions. They couldn't figure out what this title meant. Chen Zhizhong's master, what kind of sacred being was that? Chapter 478. Chen Zhizhong nodded and drank a cup of wine. He then said with a smile, "Xiaoshue, I'll talk to Master about going to Jingmen Island after I return to Star City. If Master agrees, I'll have to go to your place for a free meal. Don't forget to entertain Martial Uncle. Gu Xiaoxue chuckled and said, Xiaoxue will definitely arrange everything in advance and welcome Martial Uncle's arrival. Chen Zhizhong nodded slightly. Martial Uncle, if you don't have any other instructions, then I'll take my leave first. I'm not used to the environment here. Chen Zhizhong smiled and said, Go. Ouyang Lulu, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but roll her eyes. She thought that Gu Xiaoxue was here to eat, but it turned out that she was here to see Chen Zhizhong. She knew about Gu Xiaoxue and Chen Zhizhong very well. Last time, when Tan Xiu was in trouble in the capital, they met each other. Looking at Gu Xiaoxue's back as she left, she helplessly sat back in her seat. She then looked at Chen Zhizhong and said, Big Boss Chen, since you're Sis Xiaoshue's martial uncle, you should persuade her not to live such a boring life every day. By the way, she should listen to you, right? Chen Zhizhong smiled bitterly. She only listens to Master. Ouyang Lulu stared blankly and immediately gave him a defeated look. At the same table, a shocked expression flashed in Zhang Yueming's eyes. The moment Gu Xiaoshue's figure disappeared from the banquet hall's entrance, he immediately picked up his wineglass and left his seat. He circled to Chen Zhizhong's side and said with a smiling face, Brother Chen, I've long heard that the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals medicinal herbs business is particularly booming, but I've never had the chance to meet you. It's really a pity. Since we've met today, I propose a toast to you. What was going on? Chen Zhizhong was stunned, and so were the other people at the table. With Zhang Yueming's status, he was not inferior to Chen Zhizhong. Why would he propose a toast to Chen Zhizhong? Most importantly, he actually left his seat and stood beside Chen Zhizhong in an extremely humble manner to propose a toast. This doesn't make sense? Chen Zhizhong came back to his senses within a few seconds. He hurriedly stood up and said politely, Brother Zhang, you're too polite. Your name is like thunder piercing through my ears. Today we are fated to meet, and I can't help but be overjoyed. Come, I'll drink with you. Bro Chen, you're right. The smile on Zhang Yueming's face became even brighter as he drank the wine in his cup with Chen Zhizhong. However, he didn't leave his seat immediately. Instead, he smiled and said, Brother Chen, since you've come to Shanghai, I, as the local tyrant of Shanghai, should also do my best as a host. Are you free tonight? I'll host a banquet at home and invite Brother Chen to drink to his heart's content. Chen Zhizhong hesitated for a moment before he forced a smile and said, Brother Zhang, it's only right for me to pay a visit to your residence. But I have to leave with my master later, and I don't know what plans he has for me at night. I'm sorry, I can't agree to it right now. Zhang Yueming's expression shifted and he smilingly said, Since your master has something to do with you, then forget it. He had planned to have a few drinks with him before, but he didn't like this kind of lively scene. Please say hello to him for me later. Chen Zhizhong asked curiously, Brother Zhang, do you know who my master is? Zhang Yueming smiled and said, I have a little friendship with Master Tang. Chen Zhizhong tacitly understood and his attitude toward Zhang Yueming turned much closer. He smilingly said, Brother Zhang, please take your seat. If my master doesn't have any other arrangement, I'll definitely pay a visit to your residence. If I really can't leave, Zhizhong will definitely pay a visit when I come to Shanghai later. Zhang Yueming let out a satisfied smile and returned to his seat. He poured the wine in his cup, raised it to Chen Zhizhong, and then drank it in one gulp. The exchange between the two men made everyone present shocked and confused. Even Ouyang Lulu didn't expect that Tan Xiu actually knew Zhang Yueming and even had some friendship with him. The most important thing was that even she could see that Zhang Yueming was showing goodwill to Chen Zhizhong, and the reason was naturally because of Tan Xiu. How many powerful local tycoons does that guy know? Ouyang Lulu secretly whispered inwardly. She then raised her cup and said with a smile, Come, Lulu wants to express her gratitude to everyone. Let me toast you all again. The cup was drained. Wang Tao looked at Chen Zhizhong and curiously asked, Boss Chen, may I know who your master is? Is he also here? My master is the one who just participated in the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Tan Xiu, said Chen Zhizhong with a smile. What? Except for Ouyang Lulu and Zhang Yueming, everyone at the table looked incredulous. Boss Chen, are you kidding me? That Tang, how old is he? How could he be your master? asked Wang Tao in disbelief. Mayor Wang, there's a saying that you can't judge a book by its cover, just as you can't measure the sea with a pail. My master may be young, but he's much stronger than me in some aspects. There's a saying from the ancients that the accomplished are the teachers. It's not a big deal for me to worship him as my master, no? Wang Tao stared blankly for a moment before he awkwardly smiled and said, I'm narrow-minded. Anyways, I wonder what you've learned from Mr. Tang? Martial arts. Qin Zhizhong replied without concealing anything. Wang Tao suddenly understood and smilingly said, Chinese martial arts is the quintessence of the country. It's really rare and valuable for Boss Qin to be able to put aside the concept of age and truly achieve the state of, the accomplished are the teachers. Come, let's have a drink. All right. Qin Zhizhong said with a smile. Wang Tao drank the god's nectar in his glass and no longer talked with Qin Zhizhong. Although his words were beautiful, he disapproved of it inwardly. After all, with Qin Zhizhong's status and identity, worshipping a young man in his early 20s as his master was really making a big fuss out of nothing. If Qin Zhizhong wanted to learn martial arts, he could directly hire him with his wealth and status. As for worshipping him as a master, it was just lowering his status. There was also that Tan Xiu. He had never heard of him before. He didn't know where he came from, yet he was fortunate enough to participate in the ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Paradise Manor. Moreover, he was also Qin Zhizhong's master. He really did have some ability at such a young age. Unfortunately, it was hard for him to step onto the stage of elegance. Suddenly, something flashed in his mind and he immediately leaned toward Ouyang Lulu at his side. He lowered his voice and asked, Lulu, I want to ask you something. What is it? Ouyang Lulu asked with a strange expression. Even if that Tan Xiu is Qin Zhizhong's master or your friend, it's unlikely for him to participate in such an important ribbon-cutting ceremony, no? Could it be that he has some other great identity? Ouyang Lulu pondered for a moment. Not only did she not answer Wang Tao's question, but she asked in a low voice instead, Uncle Wang, you and my father are good friends, and our families are old friends. Am I right? Wang Tao didn't understand why Ouyang Lulu asked this question, but he still nodded and said, That's right. Our families have a deep relationship and have cooperated in many fields. The most important thing is that the Ouyang family and my Wang family have had several marriages in recent years. Ouyang Lulu nodded and said, Since that's the case, then I won't hide it from you. But don't tell anyone else. It's good that you know this matter. Wang Tao nodded and said, Tell me. Ouyang Lulu spoke in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Tan Xiu is a descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital. He's the grandson of the Tang family's old patriarch. The imperial capital? The Tang family? Wang Tao nodded lightly. Then, his complexion abruptly changed. He stood up abruptly and cried out involuntarily, What did you say? Is that? Ouyang Lulu quickly got up and grabbed his arm to interrupt him. Then, she pulled him to sit down under the puzzled expressions of everyone at the table. Uncle Wang, you don't need to make such a fuss. The shock on Wang Tao's face didn't reduce even half a bit. He looked up at Qin Zhizhong and finally understood why Qin Zhizhong wanted to worship Tan Xiu as his master. This descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital was by no means an ordinary person. Their Wang family had some power. He even learned from the game between the Tang family and the Yao family in the south that the Tang family was bullied miserably by the Yao family. Later on, Tan Xiu arrived and finally used a powerful means to defeat the Yao family, causing them to suffer heavy losses. But those ordinary families and forces might not be aware of this matter, but all the top families in the imperial capital knew about it. He even heard that the old patriarch of the Yao family was so angry that he smashed several glasses after learning about it. Under Ouyang Lulu's curious gaze, Wang Tao picked up the wine glass in front of him and looked at Qin Zhizhong, saying, Boss Qin, although I saw Mr. Tang before, I didn't have the time to greet him because there were too many people here. Here's a toast to you. I hope you can convey my regards to him later. I'll pay you a visit later if I have the time. What's going on? Qin Zhizhong was stunned and the others were dumbfounded. Everyone looked at Wang Tao with an inconceivable expression. They didn't understand why he mentioned the young man named Tan Xiao again. Even his attitude this time was completely opposite from just now. Chen Jizhong suppressed the confusion in his heart as he raised his glass and said, "You're too polite." "I will." After drinking the glass of wine, Wang Tao said, "Boss Chen, Shanghai is an international metropolis where Chinese medicine has almost been replaced by Western medicine. But Chinese medicine is the quintessence of our nation, a precious knowledge passed down by our ancestors. If your Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical is willing to do business in Shanghai, you can contact me directly. I'll give you my private number later and wait for your call. As for the paperwork from the government department, I'll personally help you handle it." This, Chen Jizhong had never thought that Wang Tao would show his goodwill publicly on such an occasion. Such a promise was very hard to come by. As though he was afraid that Chen Jizhong didn't believe him, Wang Tao spoke again. "Boss Chen, I, Wang Tao, have always been a man of my words. I only hope that our Chinese medicine can regain its former glory under the medicinal herbs provided by your Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical." Chen Jizhong gratefully looked at Wang Tao and said, "If so, then I thank you. I'll definitely contact you if I have any plans in this regard in the future." He was a smart man. From Wang Tao's words just now, he could tell that the change in Wang Tao's attitude was entirely because of his master, Tan Xiao. However, recalling that Wang Tao was from the government department, while his master, Tan Xiao, was a descendant of the Tang family in the imperial capital, the puzzlement in his heart was quickly solved. I'll continue with the third update today. It's a new week. Seeking recommendation votes _. Chapter 479. The guests who came to attend the opening ceremony of the Paradise Manor and could sit at this table were all big shots. Each and every one of them either had great power or a net worth of billions or even tens of billions. Such a group of people naturally had superior wisdom. Therefore, they could clearly feel that the change in Wang Tao's attitude toward Chen Jizhong was entirely because of Chen Jizhong's master, Tan Xiao. But they couldn't figure out what was going on specifically. Even so, they paid more attention to Tan Xiao. At the table, apart from Ouyang Lulu who was the protagonist, the others were also a bit closer to Chen Jizhong. Due to China's national conditions, connections were a very important resource. Having a huge network of resources, whether it was in life or in business, there would be countless benefits. At another table in the banquet hall, although Yang was chatting and laughing with the other guests with equal status, his eyes were glancing at Ouyang Lulu's table from time to time. There was even a bit of envy and jealousy in his eyes. At this moment, Gu Hui came over with her son, Dong Dong. She sat on the chair next to Yang with a faintly unsightly expression. "What's wrong? Is our son's illness serious?" Yang saw his wife's expression and quickly asked in a low voice. Gu Hui shook her head and said, "Our son just said that he's feeling much better. But he encountered an inauspicious thing." Yang said with a strange expression, "An inauspicious thing? What's going on?" "I just met a sleeping young man in the rest area," Gu Hui said in a low voice. "He sat up and said that our son is not sick, but bewitched. That's really infuriating. He said that there was a murder case in our family or our closest relative. What's even more infuriating is that he cursed our son, saying that the hospital can't cure him. He has a way to cure him, else he won't live for more than 7 days. Honey, that swindler is really hateful." Yang was stunned, and his pupils shrank. His heartbeat sped up several beats in an instant. Gu Hui looked at the others at the table and then said in a low voice, "Honey, I've actually seen that swindler before. He's the young man who cut the ribbon at the opening ceremony." Yang took a deep breath, looked at his wife without blinking and asked, "Tell me everything about how you met him from beginning to end. Remember, don't miss a single word. Tell me." Gu Hui was stunned. Looking at her husband's serious expression, she told him about her encounter with Tan Xiao. Finally, she said, "Tell me, how can there be such a wicked person in this world? Our son only has a slight cold. He just needs to go to the hospital to get some medicine or an injection. He actually cursed our son. How infuriating." "Shut up." He quickly stood up and pulled Gu Hui up from the chair. Then, he hurriedly said, come with me to see him." Gu Hui was dragged out of the banquet hall in a daze. Only then did she wake up and hurriedly ask, "Hubby, what's wrong with you?" "That's a lie." Yang interrupted her and shouted in a deep voice, "There's something I didn't tell you. I was drinking and driving last night and I hit someone. Since that place was rather remote, I was afraid that I would have to bear criminal responsibility, so I drove away. Tell me, do you think I'm involved in a murder case?" Gu Hui was scared. Her face instantly turned pale and a bad premonition grew crazily in her heart. As she followed her husband to the corridor, she hurriedly asked, "Hubby, is there really no one else who knows that you hit someone with your car?" Yang nodded solemnly and said, "I'm very familiar with the place where I hit someone. It was on the road not far from our house. There were no surveillance cameras nearby, and the street lights were broken at that time, so I was careless. I can assure you that there was no one around at that time. I got out of the car and observed. Since that young man knows about you, then according to what he said, our son won't live for more than 7 days." Gu Hui hurriedly said. Yang fell into silence. He used to do business in Hong Kong and was influenced by the people there. He was in awe of the gods and believed in the existence of feng shui. Of course, he also believed that there were strange people and strange things in this world. Therefore, in order to verify that what the other party said was true, and also for his son's sake, he must find the other party and ask him clearly. "Hubby, it's the rest area over there." After crossing the corridor, Gu Hui saw Tan Xiu lying in the rest area and quickly said in a low voice. Yang's eyes fell on Tan Xiu's expression. He strode over and respectfully said, "You must be Mr. Tang, right? I'm really sorry to disturb you." Tan Xiu opened his eyes. After seeing Gu Hui and her son, he immediately knew the man's identity. He nodded and asked, "How should I address you?" Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I wasn't quite sure what happened to your family. But after seeing you, I realized that you're involved in a murder case, right?" Yang's expression changed and he bitterly said, "Mr. Tang's eyes are like a torch. It's true, but how did Mr. Tang know about it?" "The death qi on you is much more serious than your son's," said Tan Xiu. "You must have touched a corpse in the last 2 days. It's just that your yang qi is very strong and the death qi has little effect on you. But you should have hugged your son not long after you touched a corpse. He's too young and his body's ability to resist the death qi is too weak. Plus, your son has a congenital heart disease, so..." Yang's expression changed. He knelt in front of Tan Xiu and begged, "You're right, Mr. Tang. Last night, I happened to be driving drunk on the road near my house. There were several broken street lights on the road. I didn't see the road clearly and hit 2 people. I got out of the car to check. Both of them were dead and I touched their corpses. When I got home, I hugged my crying son because I was scared and sad. Mr. Tang, please save my son. I'll immediately surrender myself to the police as long as he's safe and sound. I can save your son, but you must promise me a few conditions." Tan Xiu sighed inwardly. Yang knelt in front of Tan Xiu and resolutely said, "Please tell me, Mr. Tang. I'll never refuse as long as it's within my power. Retribution is karmic retribution, while heaven's wrath is karmic punishment," said Tan Xiu. "Even if you surrender yourself to the police, it'll be very difficult for you to get rid of this evil karma. Therefore, my condition is not a bad thing for you. First, find the family members of the deceased, kowtow to them 3 times and 9 times, and burn incense to release their souls. Second, take care of the deceased's family members in the future. Send off the elderly and raise the children. Third, give half of your family's wealth to charity and get a blessing." Yang heavily nodded and said, "I'll do it according to your requirements, Mr. Tang. In fact, even if I didn't meet you today, I still plan to visit the family members and give them compensation." "Get up," Tan Xiu said. "Give me the child and ask the staff here to find an empty room." All right. Yang immediately complied. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu held the little boy, who didn't cry and instead looked more spirited, and entered a room. Yang and his wife, as well as a staff member, stayed outside the door. "Uncle, it's really comfortable to be by your side," the little boy said softly. Tan Xiu faintly smiled. He was a cultivator, and he absorbed the sun's power all the time during the day, so his body naturally had warmth around him. And this warmth just happened to restrain the death chi, so he felt comfortable. Immediately after, Tan Xiu used his star force to expel the death chi from the little boy's body. He even used a massage technique to inject a trace of his star force into the little boy's heart. Although his method couldn't cure the little boy's congenital heart disease, it could alleviate it and even reduce the condition of the heart disease. It wouldn't be a problem for him to live a safe and sound life for a few years. Subsequently, after he walked out of the room with the little boy, he returned the boy to his mother and said, "The death chi in his body has been removed, but his congenital heart disease is still a disaster. If you have time during the National Day holiday, bring him to Shuangqing Province's Star City. I'll be giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital on October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Bring him here and I'll cure his congenital heart disease." Yang's pupils shrunk and his breathing became a lot more rapid. He quickly asked, "Mr. Tang, you can cure my son's congenital heart disease? It may be very troublesome for other doctors, but it's easy for me," Tan Xiu said lightly. "All right, go and busy yourself with your business. Remember my request, else your family's good days in the future will come to an end if you continue to be plagued with bad karma." Plop. Yang pulled his wife, Gu Hui. The couple knelt in front of Tan Xiu and kowtowed 3 times to Tan Xiu. Then they stood up and said, "Mr. Tang, I can't thank you enough for your kindness. This is my business card. If you need my help in the future, as long as I can do it, I promise to complete it even if I have to sacrifice my life." Tan Xiu nodded and watched the family of 3 leave. He secretly sighed inside. Through this incident, he could see how seriously the heavenly Tao had affected the humans on Earth. It was no wonder that the ancients understood the truth: good will be rewarded and evil will be punished. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. The law, in Tan Xiu's view, it could only play a restraining role, and it was meaningless to use it for punishment. For example, if he were to surrender himself, he could only be sentenced to an accident and run away at most. Even if he were to be sentenced to 8 to 10 years, it would be meaningless. It was better to let him fulfill his request and do more good deeds in the future to end this evil karma, which would benefit many people. When Tan Xiu was in the immortal world, he was also a person who killed people like scything flax. It could be said that he had stepped on rivers of blood and mountains of corpses to break through to the supremacy stage. But he had good intentions in his heart, so he had helped many people and saved many people. His merits and demerits offset each other, and he eventually broke the heavenly Tao's shackles and achieved the supremacy stage. Chapter 480. In the afternoon, Tan Xiu left the Paradise Manor with Chen Jizhong and Gu Xiaoxue. Ouyang Lulu was busy, so she didn't urge them to stay. She just told Tan Xiu to come over when he had time. After returning to the Blue Star Villa complex, Tan Xiu saw that Qi Nan had brought the 2 nannies. Since Gu Xiaoxue had come, he wanted her to take Tang Xiaojin's group of 5 away. Therefore, the responsibility of looking after the children was no longer given to the 2 nannies. But he still asked them to stay and clean the place and cook. "Both of you, come with me to the study room." As Qi Nan left, Tan Xiu looked at the 2 and said, "Inside the study room." Tan Xiu's group of 3 had just sat down when one of the nannies, who was more perceptive and was familiar with the environment here, served hot tea. "Aunt Lu, you can clean the rest of the villa starting today, but not this study room. You 2 are not allowed to step into this study room without my order." Upon hearing it, the nearly 50-year-old Lu Fan quickly nodded and said, "All right, I'll inform Big Sis Zhang." After she left the study room and closed the door from the outside, Tan Xiu looked at Chen Jizhong and said, "Jizhong, take a look at this list. Help me find as many medicinal herbs as you can. They don't need to be old, as long as they are alive and can be planted. Also, if you can get the seeds of these herbs, you can also buy them." Chen Jizhong took the list and found hundreds of names of medicinal herbs written on it. He immediately asked, "Master, I've never heard of some of these medicinal herbs. They should be rare herbs. But most of them are easy to find. May I know the quantity you need? I'm going to plant 100 acres of medicinal herbs first, said Tan Xiao seriously. So the quantity I need is huge. Buy as much as you can. In short, the more the better. Plant medicinal herbs? 100 acres of land? Qin Zhizhong was startled and quickly said, I understand, master. I'll immediately start arranging it after we return to Star City. You don't need to worry about those seedlings, said Tan Xiao. Send someone to buy a large number of medicinal herbs and seeds first. When I'm ready, I'll look for and buy seedlings. Chen Zhizhong nodded and carefully put away the paper with the names of medicinal herbs written on it. Then, he said, I've encountered a bottleneck in my cultivation, master. No matter how hard I try, my cultivation progress is very slow. Recently, I've gotten a lot of precious medicinal herbs to supplement my body, but I've discovered that it's very difficult to absorb the medicinal effects. Tan Xiao looked at him strangely and asked, You use precious medicinal herbs to nourish yourself? Qin Zhizhong said matter-of-factly, That's right. After all, I run a medicinal herb business. If I find good quality medicinal herbs, such as 100-year-old ginseng, lingzhi, cordyceps, and other good things, I will keep a portion of them. Perhaps because he had taken too much of it recently, he felt that the medicinal effects were stored in his body, but it was difficult for him to absorb them. You might even have night sweats and nosebleeds if you take too much medicinal cuisine. Tan Xiao was speechless. He glanced at Gu Xiaoxue, who also had a strange expression on her face. He shook his head and forced a smile. It seems that you've really wasted too many medicinal herbs. How about this? Send all the medicinal herbs you get to Jingmen Island's Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in exchange for a certain amount of medicinal pills. Taking medicinal herbs directly, even if it's just medicinal cuisine, will not bring great benefits to the cultivator once the medicinal efficacy has been absorbed to a certain extent. But it's different to refine medicinal pills since it's easier to absorb and refine them. Medicinal pills? Chen Zhizhong had heard about medicinal pills, but how could he know that the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island had someone who could refine medicinal pills? Upon hearing Tan Xiao's words, he secretly regretted it. However, he was rich and overbearing, so he quickly calmed down and said, Master, I was just about to mention it to you. Can you see if I can go to Jingmen Island's Everlasting Feast Hall when I have nothing to do? A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiao's mouth. With a teasing look in his eyes, he nodded and smilingly said, Since you're the one who proposed it, then go. After you've collected enough medicinal herbs and seeds for me to plant, arrange the company's affairs, and then go there for a few months for special training. I'm sure it will be of great help to you. With a happy expression, Qin Zhizhong respectfully replied, Understood. I'll prepare it as soon as possible. Tan Xiao looked at Gu Xiaoxue and asked, Do you have any medicinal pills with you? Brought some. 2 jade bottles appeared in Gu Xiaoxue's hands out of thin air. She then said, These are essence-strengthening pills. There are a total of 20 pills in these 2 bottles. Taking one can increase your cultivation by 3 years. Give them to him, Tan Xiao said. Also, give him a list of medicinal herbs according to the exchange rate of the Everlasting Feast Hall's core members. Tell him to send the required medicinal herbs. Zhizhong, if you want to get medicinal pills later, you can go to the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ in Jingmen Island to exchange them. However, the HQ in Jingmen Island doesn't have a lot of medicinal pills, so don't rely on your wealth to exchange for them wantonly. Qin Zhizhong looked happy. After receiving the 2 jade bottles, he excitedly said, Absolutely not, master. I'll only exchange for the medicinal pills I need. Later, if the Everlasting Feast Hall's core members want to buy medicinal herbs from you, give them a slightly cheaper price, Tan Xiao said with a smile. We'll be on the same side in the future, and I'm afraid they'll need your help a lot of times. I'll keep it in mind, master. Qin Zhizhong quickly nodded. I have a lot of rooms here, Tan Xiao said with a smile. You can choose any one and go back to Star City with me tomorrow. Xiaoxue, set off now if you want to go back to Jingmen Island today. I'll leave Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 to you. Be sure to train them well. Understood. Gu Xiaoxue replied and got up to leave the study room. As the 2 of them left, Tan Xiao went to the innermost corner of the study room. His fingers constantly flicked as he shot out his star force to form array runes. Immediately after, the fierce beast he had subdued instantly sprang out from the inside, and a thought was transmitted into Tang Xiu's mind. It was the feeling of hunger. Tang Xiu took out some meat from his interspatial ring and threw it to it, saying, "Your appetite has grown recently. It seems that it'll be very troublesome to only feed you meat in the future. I'll refine some beast pills for you after we go back to Star City. It's convenient to carry and will be very beneficial to you. When I become stronger, I'll teach you a set of immortal beast cultivation technique, so you can grow faster at that time." Shortly after, he received the gratitude from the fierce beast. Tang Xiu smiled and stuffed it back to the corner. He then used the array to create a wide illusion for it so that it wouldn't be bored even if it stayed in the corner. Afterward, Tang Xiu left the study room and went downstairs to the living room. Tang Xiaojin's group of 5 had begun to pack up their things and were ready to leave with Gu Xiaoxue. Tang Xiu found that they were not in a good mood, so he immediately said with a smile, "Don't worry. When you go to Jingmen Island, there will be people who will provide you with clothing, food, housing, and transportation. They will also arrange the best teachers and instructors for you to learn a lot of things. When I have time later, I'll go to Jingmen Island to see you." "All right." The 5 children nodded. As Gu Xiaoxue took them away, Tang Xiu then looked at Chen Jizhong, who had already picked a room and was sitting in the living room with a bit of boredom, and said, "Let's go. I'll teach you a set of body forging technique. As long as you diligently practice it, you'll be able to quickly strengthen your physique in the future. Also, the true qi in your body has been completely transformed into true essence, so it's time to teach you some simple spells." Chen Jizhong was overjoyed upon hearing it and immediately followed Tang Xiu to the courtyard. It was very simple. Tang Xiu taught seriously, and Chen Jizhong also studied seriously. By nightfall, Chen Jizhong had already completely mastered the body forging technique. He had even mastered several spells. However, it was still very difficult for him to use them due to his limited strength. However, according to Tang Xiu, as long as he made a breakthrough, he would be able to use several spells. "Jizhong, remember my words. You must never use spells in front of outsiders, and you must not easily expose your full cultivation. The existence of people like us will pose a threat to many people. Once exposed, I'm afraid you won't be able to live a peaceful life in the future." Tang Xiu solemnly exhorted. Chen Jizhong understood Tang Xiu's meaning, so he solemnly said, "I understand, Master. You can rest assured." Buzz. As his voice faded away, the electric gate of the villa's courtyard slowly opened. Mu Weining came in from the outside with a bag and several books in her hands. Upon seeing Chen Jizhong, who was sweating profusely with his back bare, she looked slightly surprised. She then looked at Tang Xiu and asked, "Who is this?" "He's my apprentice, Chen Jizhong," said Tang Xiu. "This is Mu Weining, an alumnus of my Demon City University." "I know her, Master," said Chen Jizhong with a smile. "She's the first beauty in the capital, Mu Weining, the little princess of the Mu family." "You're Tang Xiu's apprentice?" Mu Weining was surprised. What did you learn from him?" "Martial arts," said Chen Jizhong. Mu Weining looked at Tang Xiu with a strange expression and praised, "Tang Xiu knows too many things. I'm really envious that you can learn from him. But how do you know that I'm from the Mu family?" "I've seen your grandpa before. He was in poor health a few years ago, so I personally sent some precious medicinal herbs to the Mu family in the capital," Chen Jizhong said with a smile. "I remember now. You're the Endless Virtue Pharmaceuticals boss, Uncle Chen?" Mu Weining was surprised. No. Just call me Chen Jizhong." Chen Jizhong quickly waved his hand. "You're my master's friend, so I can't afford to call you uncle." Mu Weining looked at Tang Xiu with a strange expression before shifting her eyes to Chen Jizhong. She was secretly amazed inside. It must be noted that Chen Jizhong's Endless Virtue Pharmaceutical was one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country. Its main business was Chinese medicinal herbs, and its business was spread all over the country. A big shot like him, who had status and wealth, unexpectedly worshipped Tang Xiu as his master. This was simply inconceivable. Chapter 481. As the fragrant smell of the dishes drifted out of the villa, Tan Xiu said with a smile, "It seems that the two nannies Qin and found are good at cooking. Just the smell of the dishes has aroused my appetite. Let's go. Let's eat first." Nannies? Mu Weining was surprised. He even invited 2 guests? Tan Xiu explained, "I thought that Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 would stay here for some time, but I didn't expect that someone would come to Shanghai, so I took them away. The 2 nannies I hired were mainly to take care of their daily life. But they have already come, and Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 have already left, so I couldn't drive them away. So I let them stay. After all, this villa also needs to be cleaned." "Who took Tang Xiaojin and the others away?" asked Mu Weining quickly. "Where did they go? Weren't the 5 of them adopted by you?" "I did adopt them, but I don't have much time to take care of them." Tan Xiu interrupted her. "I arranged someone else to take care of them, so it's not a problem." Mu Weining hesitated for a moment before she finally nodded and said, "When can I see them again?" "Find an opportunity later." Tan Xiu said. After dinner, Chen Zhizhong stayed in the courtyard to practice his body forging technique, while Mu Weining pulled Tan Xiu to leave the villa and stroll outside. According to Mu Weining, it was to digest the food. However, just as the 2 of them walked out of the villa complex, Tan Xiu's mobile phone rang. To his bewilderment, the caller ID turned out to be an unfamiliar number. "This is Tan Xiu." "Who's this?" "Where are you, Tan Xiu?" Han Qingwu's voice came out of the phone. Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and slowly said, "Blue Star Villa Complex." "Wait for me. I'll be right there." After saying that, Han Qingwu hung up the phone. Mu Weining looked at Tan Xiu, who was holding the phone in a daze. She touched his arm with her elbow and curiously asked, "Who was that? It can actually make you lose your mind?" Tan Xiu came back to his senses and said, "Han Qingwu." Mu Weining said, "Your class teacher? Why is she looking for you so late at night?" "I don't know." Tan Xiu shook his head. "She only said that she would come over immediately, but she didn't say why she was looking for me." "Weining, why don't you stroll around by yourself and I'll go back and wait for her?" Mu Weining hesitated for a moment before she shook her head and said, "I'm not going to stroll around. Let's go back together." Tan Xiu nodded. More than half an hour later, Han Qingwu drove to the villa area. After asking for the number of Tan Xiu's villa, she drove straight over. When she entered the villa, she saw Chen Zhizhong practicing martial arts. She frowned, but didn't pay much attention to him. She went straight to the villa's hall. "Tan Xiu, let's talk." Han Qingwu's face was solemn as she stared at Tan Xiu, who was sitting on the sofa in the living room. "What do you want to talk about?" asked Tan Xiu. "Let's talk about," said Han Qingwu. Her words came to an abrupt halt as her eyes shifted. Disbelief filled her eyes as she looked at Mu Weining drying her wet hair with a dry towel and the pajamas she was wearing. She was dumbfounded for a moment. "Hello, Miss Han." Mu Weining chuckled. "I heard from Tan Xiu that you're coming over. Since we know each other, I came out to greet you." "Why are you here?" asked Han Qingwu with a slight frown, feeling a bit awkward inside. "I'm staying here," said Mu Weining with a smile. Han Qingwu turned to look at Tan Xiu. After hesitating for a moment, she asked, "Are you in love?" "Someone once hurt me too deeply, so I'm too lazy to fall in love now," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Go rest first, Weining. I'm sure Miss Han must have something important to talk to me about since she's looking for me." "Then I won't bother you anymore, Miss Han," said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Han Qingwu watched Mu Weining's back until she disappeared into a room in the corridor. Then she suddenly turned to look at Tan Xiu and asked, "You just said that someone once hurt you too deeply. Is that person called Xue Qingqing?" Tan Xiu's expression drastically changed. He abruptly got up from the sofa. A chilling light burst out from his eyes as he shouted in a deep voice, "Tell me, what did you remember?" Han Qingwu carefully observed Tan Xiu's expression. After being silent for a few minutes, she shook her head and said, "I only know this name." "I want to hear the truth," said Tan Xiu coldly. "What I said is the truth." Han Qingwu said, I've figured out the inexplicable images that appeared in my mind before. Although I don't know how those images came to my mind, I'm sure that it's definitely related to me. Then there are two names, one is Xue Qingqing and the other is Tan Xiu. These two people seem to be very important to me, even more important than myself. Tan Xiu shot a deep look at him before retracting his gaze. After sitting back on the sofa, he pointed to the opposite side and said, "Have a seat. You came to me so late, so I believe that's not what you want to tell me." After taking a seat, Han Qingwu then said with all seriousness, "Tan Xiu, I hope you can tell me something. It's about those images in my mind. Don't deny it. You must know something because your name is what appeared in my mind." "Didn't you inquire about my name when I saved you at the scene of the car accident?" asked Tang Xiu lightly. "Didn't my name appear in your mind?" "That's not what I'm talking about." Han Qingwu shook her head. "It's about you and Xue Qingqing." "Shut up!" shouted Tan Xiu angrily. Han Qingwu stared blankly for a moment. Suddenly, a bright smile appeared on her solemn face. She looked deeply at Tan Xiu and said, "It seems that she's the one who hurt you. And you also know what exactly is going on with the images that appeared in my mind. Tell me. I want to know what's the relationship between you and me." "You're not qualified to know," said Tan Xiu indifferently. "I'm qualified to know," said Han Qingwu. "Because those images in my mind have seriously affected me. I even found that those images have begun to affect my life and even my character. Do you see it? This is what I learned from those images. This kind of means is not something a normal human can have." After saying that, Han Qingwu slowly raised her right hand. Several empty cups quietly floated on the coffee table between the two of them and stayed motionless several centimeters away from the table. "You?" Tan Xiu was dumbfounded. He looked at Han Qingwu in disbelief and asked, "How did you do it?" "I don't know either," said Han Qingwu. "Ever since those images appeared in my mind last time, I felt a warm current flowing in my body. I can even control that warm current. Through the scenes, I learned how to release the warm current, and from there, I could control some things. Even my body also has some problems." As her voice faded away, she fiercely slapped the tempered glass of the coffee table. With her palm as the center, the tempered glass cracked in all directions. Bim! The coffee table was broken into pieces and scattered on the ground. Tang Xiu abruptly got up. Never once did he expect that the song he played and sang at the freshman welcoming party of Shanghai University would bring such an amazing change to Han Qingwu. The means in front of him were not something a normal person could do at all. "Give me your wrist," Tan Xiu said in a deep voice. Han Qingwu stretched out her wrist without hesitation. Tan Xiu put his fingers on Han Qingwu's pulse. As he sensed it, his divine sense quickly followed his perception into Han Qingwu's body. Through observation, he did find that there was a very strong flow of qi in Han Qingwu's meridians, and the circulation route was the basic route of a cultivation method. The first level of the 9 cold mysterious art. The corner of Tan Xiu's mouth twitched a few times. After releasing Han Qingwu's wrist, he stepped back and sat back on the sofa. Through observation, he had determined that what Han Qingwu had learned was the top cultivation method in the immortal world, the 9 cold mysterious art, which was cultivated by Xue Qingqing in the past. Even this peerless immortal art was taught to Xue Qingqing by him. Now, because the true essence in Han Qingwu's body was circulating on its own according to the first level of the 9 cold mysterious art, not only was she able to display the object manipulation art, but her body had also undergone great changes. Therefore, her palm just now was completely due to the increase in her strength, which forcibly smashed the tempered glass table. Han Qingwu also sat down and stared at Tan Xiu, asking, "Tell me, what's going on?" Although I can feel that the changes in my body are not a bad thing and seem to be a good thing, I'm still worried. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "What I want to change the most now is not your body, but your brain. If you can remember everything, some things can be solved. However, I can give you time to slowly think about it. I believe that sooner or later, you'll remember everything." Han Qingwu stared blankly and frowned. "Remember?" You said that the inexplicable images appearing in my mind are all my memories? You'll naturally know whether it's your memories or not later, Tan Xiao said lightly. Alright, what I can tell you is that the changes in your body are not only not bad for you, but also good for you. Don't worry about it. Don't try to fool me, Tan Xiao, said Han Qingwu. Tan Xiao's expression turned cold as he indifferently said, How did I fool you? The changes in your body are your business. What does it have to do with me? You came to me so late and asked me questions, and I've already answered all of them. Why are you still questioning me? I don't understand. Why do you want to hide some of the most important things? Han Qingwu said. But I'm sure that you're not an ordinary person. Otherwise, it's impossible for you to wake up from the shock so quickly after seeing my sudden special ability. You can even diagnose me by taking my pulse, so you can figure out that the changes in my body are good and not bad. Chapter 482. Tan Xiao's heart was full of complex emotions, but his face looked extraordinarily calm. He looked at Han Qingwu's serious expression and indifferently said, Whether I'm an ordinary person or not has nothing to do with you. Han Qingwu, I still remember saying that you are you and I am me. I hope that we can keep a distance from each other. Han Qingwu abruptly stood up with an angry expression on her beautiful face. She didn't know why she felt a dull pain in her heart after hearing Tan Xiao's words. It's nothing. I just think that you're a teacher and I'm your student, and there's a generation gap between us, said Tan Xiao. Furthermore, we've known each other for a long time, and you're still my teacher in charge, whereas I'm your student. So I don't want us to be too close and be misunderstood by others. Han Qingwu glared at Tan Xiao and loudly said, I'm a woman and I'm not afraid, so what are you afraid of as a man? Whoever wants to misunderstand, just let them misunderstand. You're not married and neither am I. Even if we're really together, who can stop us? Never once did Tan Xiao expect that Han Qingwu could say such words. Upon seeing her angry expression, Tan Xiao directly got up and said, Miss Han, we're all adults and we need to be rational to see the problem. Even if you don't think for me, you still have to think for me. If we're too close, it will affect my relationship with my girlfriend. You can see that she's already living in my house. You came to see me so late. She may not say anything, but she's definitely uncomfortable inside. Your girlfriend? Han Qingwu murmured as she glanced at the corridor where Mu Weining just disappeared. Tan Xiao steeled his heart and nodded. Yeah, Mu Weining is my girlfriend. Don't tell me you still don't understand? With her character, how could she live here if she's not my girlfriend? It's just that we didn't want to make it public before. Now that you're forcing me to say it, I can only be honest with you. Han Qingwu covered her chest with her hand. Suddenly, she felt as if something very important was missing from her heart. In that sense of loss, there was an indescribable pain. I understand. She turned around in a daze. Her expression became particularly dull as she walked out in a daze. She didn't even drive the car that was parked outside the courtyard. Instead, she walked out in a daze. Tan Xiao quietly followed behind her. After walking out of the courtyard, he looked at her gradually thinning figure and sighed in his heart. He knew that Han Qingwu was Xue Qingqing, but the scene of the attack on the celestial world was still unforgettable for him. Therefore, his feelings towards Han Qingwu were very complicated. There was gratitude, hatred, and confusion. All kinds of emotions filled his chest. It was as if a bottle of 5 flavors had been knocked over, and all kinds of feelings kept surging in his heart. Did you two quarrel, master? Chen Zhizhong quietly came to Tan Xiao's side. He looked at Han Qingwu's back with some pity and spoke softly. Tan Xiao nodded and then shook his head. After Han Qingwu's back disappeared around the corner in the distance, he sighed and said, Some grievances are very complicated. You follow her. Don't let any accidents happen to her on the way back. Understood. Chen Zhizhong had no right to interfere with Tan Xiao's emotional issues, but he still obeyed Tan Xiao's order and quickly returned to the courtyard. He picked up his coat and put it on, and then strode toward the direction where Han Qingwu left. When Tan Xiao returned to the living room, He found that Mu Weining had already come out of her room. She was sitting on the sofa in the living room and seemed to be lost in thought. Had it been in the past, Tan Xiao might have had the mood to ask about it. But now, he was too lazy to do so and was ready to return to the second floor to calm himself down. Tan Xiao, I already told you that she likes you. Mu Weining's voice sounded behind Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao's footsteps came to a halt. He turned to look at Mu Weining, who had just stood up and calmly said, I'm sorry about what just happened. I used the excuse of you being my girlfriend to tell Han Qingwu to stay away from me. Why did you do that? Mu Weining forced a smile. Although I don't want you to be with Han Qingwu, you used such a reason to refuse her and hurt her greatly. I once heard a saying that the threads of feelings are tangled if you can't cut them, Tan Xiao said lightly. It's better to cut the Gordian knot and end this complicated emotional factor. I have my life and she has hers. Later, when she finds her husband and I have a family, both of us will forget each other's existence. Do you know what's the most terrifying thing in the world? What is it? Asked Mu Weining. Tan Xiao said, Time can heal all wounds and make people forget a lot of things. Time? Mu Weining shook her head and said, Maybe I'll believe your words if people can live for thousands of years. But a person's lifespan is only 100 years at most. Some unforgettable feelings will never be forgotten in the remaining decades. That pain will always be engraved in my heart, and that love will always be buried in the bottom of my heart. Tan Xiao fell into silence. He knew that Mu Weining was right. His high-sounding words just now were just to convince himself to forget Han Qingwu. But could he really forget her? He suddenly felt that he was a bit amused. The idea of deceiving himself and others unexpectedly came to his mind. He even realized that his original plan to live a carefree life seemed to be too difficult to achieve. Mu Weining looked at the silent Tan Xiao. Suddenly, a bright smile appeared on her beautiful face. She strode toward Tan Xiao and said with a smile, Tan Xiao, you're the heaven's favored one in my heart. You're the most outstanding man I've ever met. I actually wanted to take advantage of your unstable mood to take advantage of it. Perhaps this is also the best chance I've ever had in my life. How about we make it real? You be my man and I'll be your woman. How about we get a marriage certificate tomorrow if you like? You don't have a fever, do you? Tan Xiao didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. He deliberately raised his hand to touch Mu Weining's forehead and then said with a smile. Mu Weining let out a faint smile as though she had seen through Tan Xiao's mind. She still persevered and said, Don't try to change the topic. I don't have a fever and I'm very healthy now. I know you're very helpless and don't want to be entangled with so many outstanding women. If you marry me, you will be able to reject those women justifiably. Why not? The smile on Tan Xiao's face slowly faded. He looked at Mu Weining's beautiful face and stepped back. He shook his head and said, I'm sorry, but I can't give you feelings. We'll talk about feelings later, said Mu Weining. I believe that as long as I have your body, I can have your heart sooner or later. Tan Xiao shook his head again and said, If I have my body, can I really have my heart? Maybe not. But how can I know if I don't try? Mu Weining said, If I win, then you'll belong to me completely. But if I lose, I'll admit it. Tan Xiao turned around and walked toward the stairs. He only said to Mu Weining, I don't think you need to try. Someone has already taken my body, but they still can't have my heart. The knot in my heart can't be untied. Even if more people come to my door, I can't make them love me. Mu Weining was stunned. What she said tonight was all from the bottom of her heart. But she never expected that Tan Xiao would give her such an answer. Who was it? She really wanted to know who that person was. She even felt a faint jealousy in her heart. She was jealous of the woman who could have Tan Xiao, even if she couldn't have his heart. That night, Mu Weining was suffering from insomnia, and so was Han Qingwu. The dazed Han Qingwu left the Blue Star Villa complex and walked for a long time in a daze. She woke up because she was almost hit by a car on the road, and Chen Jizhong came to her rescue. She returned to her residence. Han Qingwu soaked herself in the bathtub for a long time. Her whole body seemed to be shrouded in a deathly aura. After crawling out of the bathtub in a daze, She lay on the bed in her pajamas and opened her eyes until dawn. The next morning, Tan Xiao went to the campus. After exchanging some books in the library, he chatted with Yu Kai, Xue Chao, and the others for a while. After that, he called Chen Zhizhong and embarked on the journey back to Star City, Southgate Town. After Tan Xiao stepped into the house, he smelled a faint aroma of food. At this moment, his heart suddenly became tranquil. I need a mother. He had been living in the immortal world for thousands of years. Even in his dreams, he hoped that one day, he would be able to smell the aroma of his mother's cooking when he returned home. He would be able to see her familiar back and see her forever young face. All of a sudden, he found that his previous messy mood was so ridiculous. Regardless of what he had encountered in the past, he was now back and truly living in the same world as his mother. Xiao, where's your luggage? Tang Yunda came down from the stairs on the second floor. He looked at Tan Xiao, who returned empty-handed, and asked with a faint smile. Tan Xiao didn't want to tell him about the interspatial ring, so he casually made up a reason. Yet he felt warm inside. His regret was that he had never felt the taste of a father's love. Now that he came back, not only did he return to his mother's side, but he also made up for that fatherly love, which made him feel even more warm inside. Dad, where's Mom? She's cooking in the kitchen, said Tang Yunda with a smile. I knew you were back, so I wanted to be her assistant. But she didn't agree no matter what. Tan Xiao smiled. He walked to the kitchen door and saw the back of his mother, Su Lingyun, who was busy. As if she heard his footsteps, Su Lingyun turned her head. Xiao, you're back. Hurry up and wash your hands. I'm going to cook another dish and then we can start eating. But Tan Xiao replied with a smile and turned to the bathroom with satisfaction. Dinner. There was only a family of 3, but they got along with each other happily and harmoniously. This kind of atmosphere not only filled Tan Xiao's heart with warmth, but also made Su Lingyun think of the past days. Her eyes turned slightly red, and her smile was particularly bright. Today, we'll continue to watch the third night. Quiet Night's debt will soon be paid off. Soon, we can play the game of watching the second night with our brothers and sisters _. Chapter 483. It was a sunny 11th holiday, and the air seemed to be filled with a cheerful atmosphere. After leaving Southgate Town, Tan Xiao went straight to the magnificent Tang Corporation's HQ. However, what made him helpless was that none of the 4 security guards in charge of the security work knew who he was. Sir, you're absolutely not allowed to enter without the magnificent Tang Corporation's work card. If you're really looking for someone, please contact the person you're looking for and ask him to come out and pick you up. You can enter after registering. I hope you can cooperate with us, the middle-aged security guard said solemnly with a straight body and a face full of righteousness. This seems to be the second time I've been stopped outside my company's door, said Tan Xiao with a forced smile. However, I won't make things difficult for you for the sake of your loyalty and dedication. I'll make a phone call and ask Kong Xia to talk to you. Kong Xia? General Manager? The 4 security guards were surprised after hearing it. Suddenly, they realized what Tan Xiao just said. What did he mean by his company? Tan Xiao dialed Kong Xia's number and told her that he was stopped at the company's entrance. Kong Xia giggled as he handed the phone to the security guard in front of him. After a while, the security guard looked shocked and nodded repeatedly. Then he respectfully returned the phone to Tan Xiao, bowed and said, "We didn't know it was you, boss. I hope you can forgive us." Tan Xiao patted his shoulder and smilingly said, "You've done a good job. If you didn't know me and rashly let me in, I would have questioned your work attitude and ability. Work hard and the magnificent Tang Corporation won't mistreat you." After that, under the excited eyes of the security guard, he walked inside. Tan Xiao didn't know what means Kong Xia used, nor did he know how much money she had spent. In short, all the original companies in this building had been moved away, and the entire building now belonged to the magnificent Tang Corporation. Boss, how does it feel to be stopped by your own people and not let you enter your own home? Just as Tan Xiao came out of the elevator, he saw a smiling Kong Xia and a particularly bright Andy outside. However, Kong Xia's words made Tan Xiao smile bitterly again and again. Afterward, the trio came to the general manager's office. After Kong Xia gave her seat to Tan Xiao, she stood in front of the desk and handed over a stack of documents, saying, "Boss, some of these documents are the financial statements of our magnificent Tang Corp since it started making profits, and some of them are the major forces I've sent to investigate. Take a look first, we can talk after that." Tan Xiao nodded, pointed to the sofa in the corner and said, "You guys wait for me first. I'll finish reading it first." 2 whole hours. Tan Xiao read all the information given to him by Kong Xia. Then, he got up and went to sit in front of Kong Xia and Andy. After lighting a cigarette, he said while smoking, "Our magnificent Tang Corporation has a good income, so we're quite well off now. However, I'm very curious. What method did you use to get all the companies in this building to leave?" Kong Xia chuckled and said, "The world is bustling for benefits, and the world is bustling for benefits. With the combination of benefits and connections, as well as a batch of God's nectar that is very difficult to buy in the market, they are naturally willing to move away." Tan Xiao gave a thumbs up and praised, "It's really the right choice to let you work for me. Let's not talk about the financial matters first. I've read all the information about the forces that are targeting our magnificent Tang Corporation. A group of experts will come to Star City tonight, so I need to make some arrangements and then deal with them all." "How will you deal with them?" Kong Xia asked with a strange expression. "Make them disappear from the world," Tan Xiao said lightly. Kong Xia was startled and quickly asked, "Boss, do you want to kill them all?" "Killing them is not a good idea." Tan Xiao shook his head. "I'm going to quietly send them abroad to work in the mines in Africa for a few years. After a few years, when our magnificent Tang Corp has enough capital, we can release them and they won't pose any threat to us." "I don't think it's a good idea." Kong Xia hesitated. "After all, there will be a steady stream of people coming after us. It's a temporary solution and not a permanent solution. That's why I said I need to make arrangements in advance," Tan Xiao said. "You should understand the principle of using the tiger's might to intimidate others, right? If those forces are aware that our country is involved, will they dare to continue being arrogant? I'll also make arrangements in advance for our products to go abroad in the future. Whoever dares to touch our magnificent Tang Corp will have to bear serious consequences." Kong Xia nodded thoughtfully and smilingly said, "I'm at ease with you taking care of things, boss." "Don't flatter me." Tan Xiao chuckled and said, "Call the company's top executives bought by the Tsubwa family of YDL and the Bronze Group of M immediately. I need to talk to them." Kong Xia complied and immediately grabbed her mobile phone. A few minutes later, 4 middle-aged men and women came to the general manager's office. When they saw Tan Xiao's figure, their eyes immediately lit up and each of them looked excited. Before this, the company's top executives had always been anxious and restless, fearing that those who tried to buy them would retaliate against them if they didn't get a satisfactory answer. But now, the boss had unexpectedly appeared, indicating that he had come to solve this matter. "Boss," the 4 men respectfully called out. "I remember your names," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "Except for Supervisor Yushasha, the 3 of you have dealt with those troublemakers at the celebration banquet of our magnificent Tang Corporation. I also learned about this matter from Kong Xia. It's very good, and I'm very happy to have you as the company's top executives." Upon hearing Tan Xiao calling her name, Yushasha immediately said with a smile, "Boss, I also dealt with them at that time. I just smashed those people with wine bottles." "You're all good." Tan Xiao smiled. "Now, I have an important task for you. I don't know if you dare to take it." "What task is it, boss?" asked Yushasha curiously. "I'll give you some information. Take it and sell it to those who want to buy you," said Tan Xiao. "After you get the money, tell them that the people from the state's special department have their eyes on them. Tell them to get the money and leave quickly." The 4 men looked at each other in dismay, not understanding why Tan Xiao would make such an arrangement. Seeing their confusion, Tan Xiao lightly smiled and said, "Don't worry. The information is fake, mainly to confuse them. Also, I need them to send the news that the state's special department is involved in this matter back to their hometown." Are you trying to scare them, boss? Asked Yu Shasha. But if they find out that the information is fake, won't they get angry out of shame and retaliate against us? I have my own brilliant plan, said Tan Xiu. They won't retaliate. The reason I came here this time is to get rid of these future troubles and let our magnificent Tang Corp enter a faster development track. We'll do it, boss. A middle-aged executive solemnly said. How much money you can sell this information for is your own welfare, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I hope you can seize this opportunity. Really? The four men were pleasantly surprised. It must be noted that humans die for wealth just as birds die for food. Those who tried to buy them had given them a huge amount of money. They were absolutely willing to take the risk if they could make it their own money. Furthermore, this was not a betrayal, but dealing with the enemy, so they had no psychological burden. At noon, in a high-class guest room of the Long's dining hall in Star City, two top executives of the What family stood quietly in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, observing the movement outside. Four burly men in black suits stood on both sides of the door, looking like bodyguards. Big brother, do you think the magnificent Tang Corporation's supervisor will really sell us the God's Nectar recipe? There's only 5 minutes left according to our agreement, but she hasn't appeared yet. Alessandro's brows were tightly furrowed as his eyes kept glancing at the entrance below. She should know how powerful we are. Alessandro sneered. Since she has promised to cooperate with us, I'm sure she'll bring the thing we want. What if she deceives us with a fake thing? Alessandro hesitated. We have no way to verify the authenticity of the God's Nectar's formula. She won't dare, said Alessandro. There's an old saying in Huaxia that we accept money to eliminate disasters. Since she dares to accept our money, she won't dare to sell us a fake thing, else she won't be able to bear our anger. Unless she doesn't want to live anymore. You're right. Alessandro nodded. Our Tsubwa family has always been bullying others, but we've never been bullied by others. Anyone who dares to deceive us is already dead. However, there's something I can't figure out. That woman refused us before, so why did she suddenly change her mind? Men die for wealth, just as birds die for food. Alessandro sneered. She may have been a bit timid at first, but she changed her mind after a few days of consideration. After all, the price we promised her is enough for her to live a comfortable life in any city in the world. Well, that makes sense. She's here. Alessandro's eyes suddenly lit up as he looked at the entrance below. I saw her, said Alessandro. Our men are already waiting for her, and she'll be brought here later. Prepare the money. We'll transfer the money to her account after we get the recipe we need. I'm sure she'll definitely run far away after getting the money. Those damn bastards of the magnificent Tang Corporation will never think that their God's Nectar recipe has actually fallen into our hands. If we can produce a good wine like God's Nectar according to the requirements of the recipe, it will definitely bring huge benefits to our family. At that time, it'll be even easier for you to run for the patriarch position, big brother. Today's third update is here. Quiet Night is going all out. Brothers and sisters, can you leave your tickets? Chapter 484. Upon hearing this, a satisfied smile appeared on Ashburford's rough face. His mind was already imagining the glorious scene of him becoming the patriarch of his family in the future. In the past, his family controlled a lot of gray businesses in YDL country, among which there were a lot of risks involved. In recent years, his father deliberately reduced a lot of gray businesses and began to invest in legitimate businesses on a large scale. Therefore, after they obtained the best wine in the world, God's Nectar, and tasted it through special channels, they immediately decided to contact the magnificent Tang Corporation and tried to get the exclusive dealership of God's Nectar in YDL country from the company. But the result disappointed them. The magnificent Tang Corporation didn't want to cooperate with them at all. In desperation, his father issued a death order that they must get the God's Nectar's production formula by any means. Since the magnificent Tang Corporation didn't want to cooperate, then they had to do it themselves. Ashburford was an exceptionally astute man, but he was also very conceited. Through the magnificent Tang Corporation's sales in God's nectar, he judged that there was an extremely huge profit to be made from this wine. If his Tsubua clan could get it, it would double their family's wealth in just a few years, and their family's strength would be further enhanced. Such a result, it would play a vital role in his future election as the patriarch of his family. Knock knock. The door was knocked. Ashburford strode forward and opened the door himself. Upon seeing Yushasha standing outside, a bright smile appeared on his rough face as he politely said, "Welcome, monsieur. Please come in." Yushasha walked into the room and said, "There's a problem, so I can't give you the God's Nectar's formula for the time being. I need money, so I'll give you the formula after the money is transferred to the account I gave you." Ashburford's expression changed. Despite the anger inside, he tried to restrain it and asked, "What's the problem?" Yushasha was silent for a moment and then said, "Someone from China's special department contacted the general manager of the Magnificent Tang Corporation last night. The entire Magnificent Tang Corporation is now under the state's protection. If I hadn't gotten the God's Nectar's formula ahead of time, I wouldn't have been able to act now." China's government? A look of dread appeared in Ashburford's eyes. He understood the situation in China very well. Once the government interfered in this matter, it would be troublesome. However, he secretly rejoiced that Yushasha was courageous and smart enough to get the recipe of God's nectar in advance. "Miss Yu, I believe you have tried your best to understand what kind of existence our Tsuba clan is in the past few days. I don't want to threaten you, but you should know the consequences of lying to us. Give me your account number. I'll get someone to transfer the money to you now." Yushasha pondered for a moment and finally told Ashburford about a bank account. It wasn't even a Huaxia bank account, but a Swiss bank account. A few minutes later, a middle-aged man sitting in front of a computer looked up at Ashburford and said, "Boss, this Swiss bank account is a new one. It's about the other party's name and more information." Ashburford laughed. "Miss Yu is really smart. Although UBS has released some customer information, most of it is still confidential. If we transfer the money to this account, no one will know that there is suddenly a huge sum of money in your account. Even if you continue to work in the Magnificent Tang Corporation, you won't be in any danger as long as you don't expose yourself. There's an old saying in China that caution is the key to success," Yushasha said. Ashburford gave a thumbs up, turned his head and said, "Transfer the money to her." "Understood." The middle-aged man sitting in front of the computer immediately entered a string of account numbers and began to transfer the money online. 2 minutes later, $10 million was transferred to Yushasha's account. "Miss Yu, the money has been transferred to you. When will you give me the recipe of God's nectar we need?" asked Ashburford. "It's not easy for me to take the risk to come here today," said Yushasha. "People from the state's special department have been keeping an eye on our company's top management, so it's not suitable for us to meet during the day. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance of the Happy Shopping Mart in the Old River Street district of Star City at 12 o'clock tonight. I'll personally give you the recipe of God's nectar." Ashburford nodded and said, "You don't mind if I send someone to follow you in secret, do you? After all, we've already given you $10 million. If you want to run away, it will be very troublesome for us to find you. If you want to send someone to follow me, please do as you please," said Yushasha lightly. "But I need to warn you that once I return to the Magnificent Tang Corporation, I'm afraid the Chinese officials will keep an eye on me. It's best not to send anyone to follow me if you don't want to be exposed." "I know what I'm doing," said Ashburford. Yushasha didn't stay any longer and directly left the room. She then quickly disappeared from the entrance of the Long's dining hall. At the same time, the same thing, but with different people, was going on in another 5-star hotel 10 kilometers away. However, the buyer this time was no longer someone from the Tsuba clan, but a person in charge of the Bronze Group of M Country. Of course, the rich and overbearing Bronze Group offered a higher price of $20 million to buy the recipe of God's nectar, skincare lotion, and scar removal cream. In the evening, in a car repair shop in the Old River Street district of Star City, hundreds of experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had quietly arrived. The entire courtyard was full of people, but no one spoke. Among these people, apart from dozens of core experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall, the rest were all peripheral members. Although their strength was not as strong as the core experts, they were still many times more powerful compared to ordinary people. Boss, Tai Zhongkue has been ordered to come here. With a valiant aura, Tai Zhongkue was the last to arrive and stood in front of Tan Xiu, respectfully reporting. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Your task is very difficult, and your opponents should be very strong. I demand that you arrest all the members of the YDL country's Tsubwa clan in Star City, as well as the M country's Bronze Group in Star City, and send them out of the country through special means and throw them to the mines in Africa to work as coolies. Also, send some people to keep an eye on them. If anyone escapes, you can kill them." "We promise to complete the task," said Tai Zhongkue in a deep voice. Tan Xiu nodded. He took out 2 documents and handed them over to Tai Zhongkue, saying, "This is the information on all the members of the Tsubwa clan of the YDL country in Star City and the Bronze Group of M country. All the people mentioned in these 2 documents had to be arrested. Of course, there may be some people who haven't been investigated yet, but you must find them and send them to the mining areas in Africa." "Understood," Tai Zhongkue respectfully replied. Tan Xiu glanced at everyone and said, "Come out, 20 people. I need to make some other arrangements for you." Immediately, under Tai Zhongkue's order, 20 stalwart men came out. Tan Xiu distributed some forged documents to these 20 men and said in a deep voice, "Your task is very simple. Pretend to be people from the state's special department and appear in the vicinity of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Don't alert the enemy even if you find any suspicious people. Identify them in these 4 photos. If the 4 of them appear, then interrogate them. Remember, it's just a simple interrogation. Just ask them a few questions and then let them go." "Understood." The 20 stalwart men memorized Tan Xiu's words deeply. After everything was arranged properly, everyone disappeared from the auto repair shop. Tan Xiu didn't leave, but turned and walked into a room next to the auto repair shop. "Has everything been arranged properly?" Kong Xia asked with a smile on her face. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Everything has been arranged. We're just waiting for the net to be pulled at midnight." "You're not going to follow them?" asked Kong Xia. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "If I need to follow them for such a trivial matter, then these people I recruited are too useless. Don't worry. The core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall are all elites among elites. They have done this kind of thing many times, so they can definitely solve it easily. What I'm thinking about now is another issue." "What is it?" asked Kong Xia, confused. "It's about Japan," answered Tan Xiu. "The Yamamoto clan from Japan has sent their people here, asking to cooperate with our magnificent Tang Corporation. But I refused them," said Kong Xia. "They haven't made any movements until now." "I already know about the situation there," said Tan Xiu. "The eldest daughter of the Yamamoto clan, Kawako Yamamoto, is one of my people. She just received an order 2 days ago to lead a group of experts to Star City. Just like the Tsubwa clan and the Bronze Group, they're preparing to bribe our company's top executives and steal the formulas of several of our products." "When did you turn Kawako into one of our people, boss?" asked Kong Xia in astonishment. "A few months ago," answered Tan Xiu. "Is she reliable?" asked Kong Xia worriedly. "She's not of our clan, so I'm afraid." "Don't worry." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "Kawako's life is in my hands. She won't dare to betray me. Besides, she also has another identity, the future sect master of Japan's North Star One-Blade School. I'm going to train her well and use her as a springboard to control some of Japan's power and wealth." Kong Xia knew Tan Xiu well. She didn't need to worry since he was so sure about it. Although she didn't know what method Tan Xiu used. "Boss, what are you worried about since Kawako Yamamoto is one of us? I just said yesterday that I'm going to break out, yet someone immediately said that I don't need to break out. Since everyone is so considerate of me, I'll just update 2 chapters a day after paying off my debt." Chapter 485. If Kawako returns empty-handed after being sent out this time, I'm afraid her status in the Yamamoto family will be affected, said Tanshio. She won't have a good reputation in the North Star One-Blade School. She might even be labeled as incompetent, which will have a serious impact on her taking over the Yamamoto family and the North Star One-Blade School in the future. Then what should we do? Asked Kong Xia. I'm still thinking about it, but I don't have a clue yet, answered Tanshio. Kong Xia's expression suddenly shifted and she quickly said, Boss, aren't we going to have someone pretend to be someone from the state's special department in our plan? Since we're going to deal with the YDL Mafia, the Tsubwa clan, the M Countries Bronze Group, as well as several other forces with ulterior motives, why don't we pretend to be someone from the state and join hands with Kawako Yamamoto to put on a show? How will we do it? Asked Tanshio with a slightly moved expression. Kong Xia let out a faint smile and said, What if we uproot all those forces that are plotting against us and vanish without a trace? What if the people brought by Kawako Yamamoto from the island nation eventually escaped China despite suffering some losses? We'll pretend to be someone from the state. Tanshio's eyes lit up as he clapped and said, That's a great idea. I've already asked Yu Shasha to pass the news to the Tsubwa clan and the Bronze Group. I believe they have already sent the news back to their hometowns about the special department. If the people brought by Kawako Yamamoto from the island nation eventually escape after suffering some losses, then we can use Kawako Yamamoto's mouth to confirm this point. This will play a very good role in deterring those forces. I've solved your problems, boss, said Kong Xia with a smile. How are you going to reward me? Tanshio hugged her and kissed her on the forehead. Then he smilingly said, This is your reward. Kong Xia hugged Tanshio's waist and said, This reward is far from enough. I told you that I want to have a child with you. Tanshio stared blankly for a moment before his eyes swept to the innermost bed in the room. He immediately hugged her and strode toward the bed. The spring scenery was overflowing, filling the room with bashfulness. After more than an hour, Tanshio looked at the sleeping Kong Xia as he put on his clothes and walked out of the room. After lighting a cigarette, he silently thought about how to make his acting more realistic. Time flew by. Inside the high-class guest room of the Long's dining hall, Ashburford was smoking a thick cigar. After hanging up the phone, he looked at Alessandro with a vigilant expression and said in a deep voice, I've got the exact news that the Chinese government has indeed participated in this matter. Our men found them near the magnificent Tang Corporation. Call my father and tell him what's going on here. Alessandro's expression changed. He quickly nodded, picked up his phone, and walked to the side. A few minutes later, Alessandro hung up the phone and said, Big brother, I've finished the call. The Patriarch asked us to get the God's Nectar's formula at all costs while ensuring our safety. If the Chinese officials dare to make a move against us, immediately counterattack and then quickly withdraw from Star City and leave China through our special channel. Tonight, all of us will go to the River Street Old District that Yu Shasha mentioned. Once we get the God's Nectar formula, we'll immediately evacuate. It's no longer safe in China now. Yeah, I think so too. Alessandro said. Ashburford looked at the time and said, There's only half an hour left before midnight. Although we're not far from the River Street Old District, we'd better rush there just in case. That's right, have the people we've sent to set up the place? They've been set up, said Alessandro. It's fine if there's no danger, but if there is, our men will immediately attack. Great. River Street Old District. The entrance of the Happy Shopping supermarket was dark. Yu Shasha, wearing a coat, a black hat, and a mask on her face, quietly walked to a dark corner and squatted there without moving. Dozens of members of the Tsubwa family were quietly observing her with binoculars near her, constantly transmitting Yu Shasha's movements to Ashburford. 5 minutes before midnight, 2 cars quickly stopped at the entrance of the Happy Shopping supermarket. As 6 or 7 people got off, Ashburford turned his head to look for Yu Shasha's trace. Why did you come so late? Yu Shasha stood up from the dark corner and looked at Ashburford with a dissatisfied expression, grumbling in a low voice with a bit of nervousness. There's still 4 or 5 minutes left before the appointed time. We're not late, said Ashburford. Have you brought what we need, Miss Yu? Yushasha glanced around like a thief. After finding that there was no abnormality in the surroundings, she quickly took out a list from her pocket and stuffed it into Ashburford's hand. She hurriedly said, "This is the recipe of God's nectar. You can test it immediately after you take it back. I won't lie to you, and I won't dare to lie to you. But remember, if this recipe is real, we'll act as if we've never seen it." Ashburford's eyes were filled with ecstasy. He quickly glanced at the recipe and said with a satisfied smile, "I understand. You're an employee of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Any employee who betrays the company's confidential information will be sentenced. Don't worry. We'll never betray you." Yushasha's expression slightly changed. She shot a deep look at Ashburford and then turned around and ran to the distance. It didn't take long for her figure to disappear into the darkness in the distance. Ashburford turned to look at Alessandro and said in a deep voice, "Gather everyone. We're leaving Star City immediately." "Understood." Alessandro also looked excited. He quickly took out his mobile and dialed a number. However, no one answered the phone even after the ringing ended. What's going on? Why isn't he picking up the phone? Ashburford's expression slightly changed and he asked in a deep voice, "He's not picking up the phone? What the hell is Arito doing? Isn't he in the vicinity? Let's go find them. That damn bastard. He might have lost his phone somewhere. I'll definitely punish him severely after I go back." Alessandro agreed and quickly ran away with a few of his men. After they patrolled the surroundings, he deeply furrowed his brows and returned, saying, "I can't find them, big brother. It's reasonable to say that they should be lying in ambush nearby. How come I don't see any trace of them?" Ashburford frowned and said, "Hasn't Arito been providing us with the location of Yushasha's previous hiding spot? How come they're gone? Find them. They must be in the vicinity." Then, everyone had been searching for more than half an hour. They used binoculars to observe many places and even searched many hidden places, yet they still couldn't find any trace of Arito and his men. Bush, 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 bush. One after another, ghostly figures approached them silently. Tai Zhonkue, who was in the lead, had a sharp dagger in his mouth. Like a ghost in the night, he appeared beside Ashburford and clamped the dagger between his teeth against Ashburford's neck. "How come we meet again, old friend?" Tai Zhonkue's cold voice rang in Ashburford's ears. At the same time, more than a dozen core experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall had already aimed their guns at Alessandro and the others. Ashburford's body stiffened. He turned his head with difficulty and looked at Tai Zhonkue. His pupils suddenly shrunk and he cried out in horror, "Heavens! Damn demon! No. It should be my dear Zaris. I know it's not your real name, but I only know you as such. Why you here? Is there any misunderstanding between us?" "There's no misunderstanding between us, Ashburford." Tai Zhonkue sneered. "But you violated my boss's interests and tried to rob his things, so you must be punished. If I had killed you directly according to my original intention, it would have been a clean end to all troubles. Because I still remember the time you shot me in the left arm. Don't, Zaris. We were enemies at that time, and you also killed many experts of my Tsubwa clan. I think we're even now. Also, who's your boss? I can talk to him. If there's any misunderstanding between us, I think it can be solved." "There's no misunderstanding between us." Tai Zhonkue sneered. "Don't worry. My boss is a soft-hearted person and doesn't want us to kill you. But you must come with us. Of course, if you want to resist, I might really kill you." Star City. The Everlasting Feast Hall's people also captured the enemies in several other places. Everything went very smoothly. Aside from a few people who resisted and were ruthlessly killed, the rest were all knocked unconscious, tied up, and thrown into the container trucks that had been prepared in advance. Inside the auto repair shop in the Old River Street district of Star City, Tan Shio was sitting in the courtyard and thinking about something when his mobile phone rang. "Tai Zhonkue, how's it going?" asked Tan Shio directly after picking up the phone. "It's all done, boss," said Tai Zhonkue. "We've captured all the people listed in the information. In addition, we've also captured some people who weren't listed in the information. Right now, they have already been sent to the port by our people. They will be sent out of China tonight. Tell them to pay attention to their safety on the road, said Tan Xiu. Kill them if they dare to resist, said Tang Xiu. Understood, replied Tai Zhongkue respectfully. Come to the auto repair shop we met before, said Tan Xiu. There's something I need to tell you. Also, settle the others and don't let them attract other people's attention. I'll send them to the ship first, boss, said Tai Zhongkue. Then I'll go to your place. Alright, said Tan Xiu. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.